Chapter 260. Qin Haodong was slightly surprised. The middle-aged man seemed to have a strong opinion of him, but he didn't remember seeing this person. But then he saw the assistant standing behind the middle-aged man and immediately understood what was going on. It turned out that the middle-aged man was President Lang, who was sitting in the Mercedes-Benz MPV. He couldn't help but laugh in his heart. To be so narrow-minded just because of a parking space, it seemed that President Lang's magnanimity was a little too small. Gao Fengwen said, "President Lang, you're wrong this time. Dr. Qin is a really capable person. At least in terms of traditional Chinese medicine, I can't catch up with him. Even 100 Gao Fengwens can't compare with Qin Haodong. Otherwise he wouldn't be called the medical sage." Guofeng also said, "Brother Qin is really a rare talent. I still have to rely on him to help me in antique appraisal." Seeing that Gao Fengwen and Guofeng admired Qin Haodong so much, the middle-aged man snorted and said nothing. Gao Fengwen then said to Qin Haodong, "Dr. Qin, let me introduce you to Lang Sanyuan, the president of our music association. He's the best in music in Jiangnan City." Lang Sanyuan snorted again and then turned his head without saying anything. Qin Haodong smiled and didn't care. It seemed that Lang Sanyuan thought highly of himself, but in Qin Haodong's eyes he was really a nobody. Next, Gao Fengwen introduced the beautiful woman to Qin Haodong. "This is Miss Hua Mingrui, the president of our Jiangnan Tea Ceremony Association. She's very talented in the tea ceremony. Everyone calls her the Tea Fairy." Hua Mingrui stood up and glanced at Qin Haodong with great interest. Then she stretched out her white and tender hand and said, "I've heard about the medical sage for a long time. I heard that you cured old Maldini's brain tumor without surgery. It's really amazing. I admire you." "You're welcome, Miss Hua." Qin Haodong reached out and shook hands with Hua Mingrui gently. She deserved to be called the Tea Fairy. Her tranquil temperament really made people feel very comfortable. Finally, Gao Fengwen introduced the old man to Qin Haodong. "This is Mr. Tang Qingji, the president of the Jiangnan Calligraphy and Painting Association. He is also one of the famous painters in Wuxia." The old man's eyes were full of appreciation when he saw Qin Haodong. He said enthusiastically, "I'm a good friend of President Guo. He told me that Brother Qin copied the painting of Lotus of the art sage Wu Daozi on the spot. The younger generation will surpass the older. If there's a chance, please show me." Qin Haodong said humbly, "Thank you, Mr. Tang." After exchanging pleasantries, everyone took their seats. The exhibition center was a semicircular venue that could accommodate nearly 1,000 spectators. The delegation from Wuxia sat on the left side of the rostrum, while the delegation from Neon sat on the right. Hirai Yagyu and Chiba Mieko had also arrived with their people. At 9 o'clock in the morning, the cultural exchange officially began. After the host took the microphone to the stage, Qin Haodong was slightly stunned. It turned out to be the president of the Jewelry Association, Chen Duo. Guofeng explained, "Old Chen doesn't like to be left out and he speaks Japanese very well. This cultural exchange has nothing to do with jewelry and jade, so he volunteered to be the host." Chen Duo was really eloquent. After making a beautiful opening speech, he said, "Wuxia is a country of etiquette. We always put guests first. Now let's welcome Mr. Hirai Yagyu, the head of the Neon Cultural Delegation, to come on stage to speak." Amid a burst of applause, Hirai Yagyu, who was dressed in neon clothing, went on stage. He first bowed to the audience and then said, "Hello, friends from Wuxia. I'm Hirai Yagyu. Everyone knows that Wuxia used to have a brilliant civilization. It was one of the 4 ancient civilizations in the world. However, to be honest, today's Wuxia people are not very good at inheriting ancient culture. Some things have even been lost. We Neon people have always paid attention to learning. I think we have surpassed Wuxia in many aspects of ancient culture." At this point there was an uproar. No one had expected that the Neon man's speech on stage would be a blatant provocation. For a moment there were shouts and protests. Hirai Yagyu just smiled coldly and was not moved at all. He continued, "I know that many people don't agree with what I just said, so we have this cultural exchange. It is a cultural exchange and a challenge to the ancient culture of Wuxia. If we lose in the end, I will publicly apologize to Wuxia with all the members of the Neon delegation." After that he bowed deeply again. It seemed that he was polite, but in fact he was arrogant and walked off the stage. The Neon people are so arrogant. They are overestimating themselves. They are shameless. Didn't they learn those things from Wuxia? How dare they come back to challenge us? However, someone sighed and said, "It's not their fault. Wuxia has been a little disappointing in recent years. I heard that traditional Chinese medicine in Neon is developing better than ours. While everyone was talking, the representative of Wuxia, Mr. Gao Fengwen, went on stage. My fellow compatriots, my name is Gao Fengwen. Thank you for your respect. I will say a few words on behalf of Wuxia. Mr. Hirai Yagyu just said that our culture has declined. Indeed, I admit that we have not been very good at inheriting ancient culture over the years. Speaking of this, he suddenly changed the topic and said sonorously, but what I want to say is that even if the inheritance of ancient culture in Wuxia is not as good as it used to be, it is not something that anyone can challenge. At this point, there was a sudden burst of warm applause from the audience. After the applause subsided, Zhang Fengwen continued, take traditional Chinese medicine as an example. Traditional Chinese medicine belongs to Wuxia people. Although a lot of people have learned it over the years, its roots are still in Wuxia. Facts speak louder than words. You may have heard that a few days ago, Qin Haodong, the medical sage of Jiangnan City, successfully developed the blood revival oral liquid, which can completely cure leukemia. This is not only a blessing for more than 4 million leukemia patients in Wuxia, but also a sign of the rise of traditional Chinese medicine. I believe that from now on, traditional Chinese medicine in Wuxia will get better and reproduce our glory in the past. Gao Fengwen's impassioned words ignited the passion of all the Wuxia people. There was another burst of warm applause and cheers from the audience. Qian Duo stepped onto the stage again and said happily, just now, the leaders of both sides made a speech about whether Jiangnan City is the best or Neon is better in the inheritance of ancient culture. It will be shown soon. Please wait and see. As a Wuxia person, his words were very particular. He defined Wuxia as Jiangnan City. Even if they lost, there was still room for negotiation. After all, Jiangnan City was Jiangnan City. Although the cultural inheritance was very complete, it could not represent the whole of Wuxia. Then he continued, the order of this exchange meeting was proposed by the Neon delegation. The first item is the tea ceremony exchange. The rules of the exchange are that each side will send a representative who is proficient in the tea ceremony. If the representative of one side fails, he can admit defeat on the spot or send another representative. This is limited to 3 times. That is to say, if the third representative of one side fails, the project will fail. We have organized 10 judges who are proficient in the tea ceremony on the spot. In order to ensure fairness, we have prepared 20 cups with different numbers. The contestants of each side will pour their tea into 10 cups without any rules. Our staff will register the number on the spot. Then each judge will taste 2 cups of tea from different contestants and choose the best one. Qin Haodong nodded secretly. He had to say that this method was the fairest. The judges only knew the number of the teacup. They did not know which side the contestants were from. They could not be partial even if they wanted to. After reading the rules, Qian Duo invited the contestants of both sides to the stage. On the Wuxia side, it was Hua Mingrui, the president of the Tea Ceremony Association. On the Neon side there was also a beautiful woman in a kimono. She was Ai Yagyu from the Yagyu family. The 2 beautiful women immediately ignited the enthusiasm of the audience when they came on the stage. Interestingly, the 2 beautiful women had unique titles. Hua Mingrui was called the Tea Fairy, while Ai Yagyu was a famous tea sage in Neon. Ai Yagyu's hair was tied up and her skin was as white as snow. She looked even more charming in a kimono. Hua Mingrui was wearing a black silk cheongsam. Her curves were exquisite and her temperament was elegant. When the 2 women walked together, they each had their own charm. However, Ai Yagyu had a pair of phoenix eyes and a black mole on her left lip. According to Wuxia's ancient physiognomy, this kind of woman was scheming and mean. The staff had already set up 2 tea tables on the stage. After getting on the stage, Ai Yagyu sat down at her table. She glanced at Hua Mingrui opposite her and said, "You can't compare with me. I have a title in Neon called the Tea Sage." Hua Mingrui smiled faintly and said, "I'm sorry, I don't know about such a small place. I only know that there is a medical sage in Wuxia, but I have never heard of the Tea Sage." The 2 of them bickered on the stage before the tea ceremony. The audience felt that it was interesting and watched with great interest. Qin Haodong understood what was going on. Whether it was martial arts or tea ceremony, the battle between masters was about the state of mind. If one state of mind was disturbed, one would lose without a doubt. Ai Yagyu wanted to disturb Hua Mingrui's state of mind. However, Hua Mingrui was not an easy person to get along with, and her counterattack was extremely sharp. Ai Yagyu said, "I know about you before. You are the president of the Jiangnan Tea Ceremony Association. I heard that you also have the title of Tea Fairy. However, there are many unspoken rules in all walks of life in Wuxia. I don't know if you got this title because of your strength or because you slept with a man. Her words were even more aggressive. She had been polite before, but this sentence was a bit of a personal attack. Hua Mingrui was still unmoved. She said quietly, Miss Yagyu is wrong. Even if you want to sleep with a man, you have to be strong. For example, although your face is not bad, your waist is a little thick and your chest is not big enough. In Neon, there may be men who treat you as a female tea sage, but there is absolutely no market in Huaxia. Qin Haodong almost laughed out loud. He did not expect that Hua Mingrui, who looked like a floating fairy, would not be at a disadvantage in a fight. It seemed that the trick of the neon woman was going to fail. You. AI Yagyu's face changed and then she said, you Huaxia people can only win with words? Let's see what we can do. Hua Mingrui said lightly, that's for the best. The two women stopped talking and began to make tea with the tea set in front of them. The tea set was the same, and the tea leaves provided by the competition were exactly the same. Even the water used to make the tea came from the same bucket. What was tested was their attainments in the tea ceremony. Like martial arts, the tea ceremony was one of the ancient cultures of Huaxia. It had been passed down for thousands of years and had many schools and techniques. The tea made in different ways was completely different. There was a great difference in fragrance, taste and color. A good tea-making technique could bring out the fragrance of the tea to the extreme, making the person who drank the tea feel refreshed and greatly nourished. When the water boiled, Ai Yagyu looked at Hua Mingrui provocatively and began her tea ceremony. Chapter 261. The tea ceremony was the first competition of the cultural exchange between the two sides. In order to win a good start, both sides sent out their strongest forces. Yagyu Ai and Hua Mingrui did not hold back after they got on the stage. They prepared the utensils, warmed the teapot, baked the tea, poured the tea, shook the teapot and poured the tea. Their movements were smooth, showing their extraordinary attainments in the tea ceremony. Gao Fengwen, who was watching from below the stage, repeatedly nodded and said, not bad. Not bad. Qin Haodong said, is Mr. Gao also good at the tea ceremony? I can't say I'm good at it, but I like to make a cup of tea myself. I also have some understanding of the tea ceremony. Gao Fengwen started to talk and said, generally speaking, the Huaxia tea ceremony is divided into 3 realms. The first realm is to have good color and fragrance. I can barely achieve this realm. The color and fragrance of the tea will reach a certain level, which will make the tea taste pleasing to the eye. The tea ceremony sounds simple, but it requires a deep understanding of the tea leaves, the amount of water, and the condition of the tea set. It takes at least a few years of hard work to achieve this. Qin Haodong nodded slightly. Tea was known as the leader of all herbs and the flower of all trees. As the Emperor Greenwood, no one was more proficient in the tea ceremony than him. However, his tea ceremony was accomplished in the cultivation world, so he was not too clear about the level of tea ceremony on Earth. Gao Fengwen didn't know that he was facing a tea ceremony master. He continued, the second realm, return to simplicity. Now the two people on the stage have reached this realm. The so-called returning to simplicity meant that when making tea, one would no longer need to show off one's skills. Instead, one would need to integrate the skills of the tea ceremony into one's bones, allowing the tea's most essential flavor to be emitted. Only in this way could one brew the purest tea aroma. Not simple, to be able to reach the second realm at such a young age. Without more than 10 years of hard work and talent, it's absolutely impossible to achieve this. Qin Haodong asked, in Mr. Gao's opinion, who will win? Gao Fengwen said, although I personally don't like neon, I have to say that this neon woman's tea art has reached a certain level. She and the tea fairy are both in the second realm of the tea ceremony. This game is likely to be a draw. If anyone is able to reach the third level of the way of tea, or even touch the threshold, then this round will be a sure win. Qin Haodong asked, what is the third realm of tea ceremony that Mr. Gao mentioned? As far as I know, the third realm of the tea ceremony is called fragrance pervading the field. As the name suggested, the tea brewed by a person who had reached this level could have its fragrance spread for thousands of meters without dissipating for a long time. As the name implies, the tea made by the people on the stage, the tea made by people on the stage can have a drink. While the two of them were talking, the tea on the stage had already been brewed. 10 numbered cups were poured into them. After the staff registered the cups, they were distributed to the 10 judges below the stage to taste. The 10 judges were also hand-picked tea ceremony experts. Each time they picked up a cup, they would slowly taste it. Sometimes they would shake their heads, sometimes they would nod. Finally, they would write down the number they chose. Soon the results came out. Hua Mingrui and Ai Yagyu each got 5 votes. As Gao Fengwen said, it was a tie. Either Tu Hua Hua and A and had. Fairy and Ido say and to the back. Asento. Yeah. And. Fairy. No matter whether AI won or lost, she represented the highest level of the way of tea in Neon. It was impossible to find a second person. However, they could accept the result. After all, the way of tea originated in Wuxia and was introduced to Neon. It was a shame to have a tie with Wuxia. Qian Duo looked at Gao Fengwen and asked, Mr. Gao, is there anyone else who wants to challenge Miss AI? Gao Fengwen sighed in his heart. A tie was a disgrace to Wuxia, but the tea fairy could not win, let alone the others. He was about to indicate that there were no other contestants when Qin Haodong said, Mr. Gao, let me have a try. Can you do that? Gao Fengwen asked in surprise. At Qin Haodong's age, it was amazing that he had made achievements in medicine and antiques. It was hard to imagine that he was also proficient in the way of tea. Qin Haodong smiled and said, yes, it's not a big deal. Maybe I'll win. Seeing that he was full of confidence, Gao Fengwen said, well, if you're interested, you can have a try. As soon as Qin Haodong stood up, Lang Sanyuan, who was next to him, said disdainfully, you're overestimating yourself. You want to be in the limelight. Even the tea fairy can't win. What's the use of you going up? You'll be a disgrace to Wuxia. Without looking at Lang Sanyuan, Qin Haodong went straight to the stage. It was useless to talk to such a narrow-minded villain. He could just slap him in the face. President Qian, let me have a taste of Miss AI's tea ceremony. Hua Mingrui gave up her position and looked at Qin Haodong meaningfully. She had always been very conceited in the way of tea, but now even she could not win. She didn't know where this young man's confidence came from. Someone challenged. The second round of the competition began. The staff replaced all the tea sets that Hua Mingrui and Yagyu AI had just used and brought 2 new tea sets for them to use. AI glanced at Qin Haodong and said with a charming smile, handsome boy, can you do it? Don't tell me you're useless? There was a double meaning in her words, which were full of provocation. Qin Haodong smiled slightly and said, you'll know after you try it. Then he picked up the tea set on the table and began to operate it. A trace of disdain flashed in AI's eyes. Compared with Hua Mingrui, Qin Haodong's movements were much more stiff and there was no beauty to speak of. It was no different from ordinary people making tea at home. It was obvious that he was a layman. The others also sighed, especially the audience. They felt very sorry for the draw just now. They had thought that there was hope for AI Yagyu to defeat Yagyu AI, but now they were deeply disappointed. The young man's performance did not have the demeanor of a tea ceremony master. Qin Haodong ignored the others' expressions and calmly made his own tea. Time passed slowly. When AI made a new pot of tea, Qin Haodong had completed all the previous procedures. The difference was that AI's teapot had a faint fragrance of tea, while Qin Haodong's teapot had no smell at all. AI said contemptuously, handsome boy, do you think it's necessary to compete? I don't think we should bother the judges. Qin Haodong looked at her and smiled slightly. I think so too. There's no need to bother the judges. Lang Sanyuan said sarcastically, it's shameful. It's really shameful. You're not even as good as my nanny. What's the point of competing? Gao Fengwen and Guofeng's expressions changed, but the facts were there, so they had nothing to say. Just when everyone thought that Qin Haodong was going to admit defeat, he picked up the teapot in front of him and slowly poured the tea into the teacup in front of him. A golden liquid flowed out like a mountain spring, hitting the wall of the teacup and making a clear sound, as if a musical instrument was playing. At the same time, a strong fragrance of tea spread from the stage to the audience. Soon, the entire venue was filled with thousands of people, filling everyone's nostrils. Gao Fengwen's expression changed greatly when he smelled the tea. His disappointment was swept away and replaced by ecstasy. Fragrance pervades the field. Oh my God, it's the third realm, fragrance pervades the field. Hua Mingrui did not step down from the stage. She had been standing next to Qin Haodong. At this time she was so surprised that her face turned pale. She had been obsessed with the tea ceremony for many years, and it had always been her dream to reach the third realm, fragrance pervades the field. However, this realm was too difficult. She had not expected that what she had failed to do would be done by someone else today. The young man in front of her seemed to be casual, but he had really reached the realm of fragrance pervades the field. AI, who had been very proud just now, was now as pale as a ghost. After being immersed in the tea ceremony for so many years, she certainly knew what fragrance pervades the field meant. Even her teacher could not reach this realm. She had lost and it was a complete and utter defeat. Qin Haodong glanced at AI and said jokingly, "Miss AI, you just said that you don't need to bother the judges. Should you admit defeat?" AI bit her lip. Although she was extremely reluctant, she still said with great difficulty, "I admit defeat." One was in the second realm of the tea ceremony, while the other was in the third realm of the tea ceremony. If she asked the judges to judge such an obvious gap, people would laugh their heads off. If the score was 10-0, she would lose even more face. It was better to admit defeat directly. Seeing the neon woman admit defeat on the spot, the audience burst into thunderous cheers. Yagyu Hirai's expression changed greatly. He had thought that the first round would be a tie with Wuxia. He did not expect to be defeated in the blink of an eye, and it was a terrible defeat. Qin Haodong stood up and cupped his hands to the excited audience. Then he turned around and walked off the stage. When he returned to his seat, he glanced at Lang Sanyuan next to him. Lang Sanyuan had just ridiculed Qin Haodong for being a disgrace and saying that his tea ceremony was not as good as his nanny's. In the blink of an eye, he had been slapped in the face. At this time, he directly buried his head in his pants and did not even have the courage to look at Qin Haodong. The first round of the competition came to an end, and the second round officially began. On the neon side, Chiba Mieko went directly to the stage and said to the audience, "In the second round of the exchange competition, we would like to see the identification ability of Wuxia antique experts. We have prepared a total of 3 pairs of collections. They may all be real or they may all be fake. If the Wuxia experts identify all of them correctly, we will admit defeat." Chen Duo asked, "Miss Chiba, I would like to ask how you can ensure that the answers you give are fair and just." Chiba Mieko said, "We will put the authenticity of the collections in a small box in advance and give it to you for safekeeping. In this way we can ensure the fairness of the answers." "That's a good idea." Chen Duo nodded. Writing the answers in advance could prevent the neon people from denying it later. The neon people had never been very trustworthy. Otherwise they would not have denied the crimes they had committed. On the Wuxia side, Guofeng whispered to Qin Haodong, "Brother Qin, I'll go up and have a look first. If I can't do it, I'll ask you to come up." After that, he strode to the stage. Chen Duo said to Chiba Mieko, "Miss Chiba, President Gua is already on the stage. Please take out the collections you want to identify." Chiba Mieko waved her hand to the audience. 2 neon people walked onto the stage with 2 very simple painting tubes. Chiba Mieko first handed a small wooden box containing the answers to Chen Duo. Then she opened the painting tube and carefully took out the 2 scrolls inside. She spread them on the table. At the same time, the electronic projection equipment on the stage projected the 2 scrolls on a huge electronic screen. The audience could also see them clearly. Written on these 2 scrolls was an ancient poem: "The lantern at the 3rd watch, the rooster at the 5th watch, it is the time to bury one's head in study. If one's black hair doesn't learn early, one's white hair regrets studying late." This exhortation to study was written in cursive, and the entire scroll was written with vigor. The author was Yan Jinqing. Chapter 262. "Oh my god, it's Yan Jinqing's authentic work. It's just Yan Jinqing's calligraphy. I'm not sure if it's authentic. The neon woman said it might be fake. If it's Yan Jinqing's authentic work, how much would it cost? At least tens of millions." Yan Jinqing was no stranger to the people of Wuxia. Many people who had come to watch the competition today were lovers of calligraphy and painting. For a moment there was a lot of discussion under the stage. However, people soon found the problem. The 2 paintings were exactly the same. If they looked closely, the handwriting on the left was lighter than the one on the right. There was no other difference. "Dude, which one is real?" "I don't know. We need Director Guo to identify which one is real and which one is fake. I think they might both be fake. It's not easy to find Yan Jinqing's calligraphy. Maybe someone in Sanlitun made it." On the stage, Chiba Mieko smiled at Guofeng and said, "Mr. Guo, please appraise it. Which one is real? Which one is fake?" Guofeng nodded, took out a pair of white gloves and put them on. Then he took out a magnifying glass and began to identify them carefully. At first he was very calm. He thought that with his years of experience and skills in the antique industry, he would be able to distinguish the authenticity of the 2 works. However, as time went by, his expression became more and more serious. Later there was a faint sweat on his forehead. Guofeng looked at the 2 works more than a dozen times, but no matter how he looked at them, they were real. He couldn't find any flaws. But that was impossible. Even if Yan Jinqing had written 2 such exhortations, they couldn't be exactly the same. The font size was exactly the same. It was as if they had been printed by a photocopier. One of them must have been fabricated. Chiba Mieko stood aside and sneered. Mr. Guo, how long do you need to give me the result? Do you want me to make you a cup of tea? Her words seemed to be polite, but they were full of sarcasm. Don't worry, I'll give you the answer now. While speaking, Qin Haodong walked onto the stage. According to the rules, the Wuxia side could also send 3 people to appraise antiques, as long as they could give the same result in the end. Seeing Qin Haodong appear again, Chiba Mieko's expression changed slightly. Not only had she suffered a loss at the hands of this young man last night, but Yagyu Ai had also been defeated by him at the tea ceremony. Could it be that he had studied antique appraisal? Chiba Mieko shook her head secretly. Impossible. This is impossible. Generally speaking, it took time to reach the peak of each industry. It was impossible for a person to be proficient in all kinds of industries, unless he was an immortal. Seeing Qin Haodong on the stage, Guofeng finally breathed a sigh of relief. He really could not do anything about these 2 pieces of calligraphy. At the same time, he was secretly glad that he had the foresight to invite Qin Haodong here. Otherwise, if the Wuxia people could not identify the authenticity of his calligraphy, it would be really shameful. He said, Brother Qin, can you tell me which one is real and which one is fake? Qin Haodong smiled slightly and said, Director Guo, in fact, these 2 pieces of calligraphy are very simple, but you've been deceived by them. As the old saying goes, you've been led into a ditch by them. Chiba Mieko frowned and said, What do you mean, Mr. Qin? How did I deceive you? Qin Haodong said, In fact, it's very simple. These 2 pieces of calligraphy are original. You have to let Director Guo choose which one is fake. Aren't you forcing him to do something? What? These 2 pieces of calligraphy are real? How is that possible? Is this young man talking nonsense? How could they both be real? The 2 pieces of calligraphy are exactly the same. No wonder. This young man is so accomplished in the tea ceremony at such a young age. It's normal that he doesn't know antiques. After all, no one is perfect. After hearing Qin Haodong's words, the audience immediately became restless. Chiba Mieko's expression changed slightly, but she quickly calmed down and said, Antique appraisal depends on eyesight and experience. Don't talk nonsense. Are you better than Mr. Guo? She wanted to provoke a conflict between Qin Haodong and Guofeng. In her opinion, Guofeng was the president of the Antique Association, the director of the Antique Appraisal Center, and a veteran figure in the antique industry. He would not casually listen to Qin Haodong's opinion. Unexpectedly, as soon as she finished speaking, Guofeng said firmly, I believe Brother Qin. Since he said both pieces are real, then they are both real. That's the result of our appraisal. Chiba Mieko said, Are you sure? You know, there is only one result. Once it is determined, it can't be changed. I'm sure. Guofeng's tone was very firm. Then he turned to look at Qian Duo and said, We have given the final result of the appraisal. Let's reveal the answer. Since Guofeng was sure, Qian Duo no longer hesitated. He opened the box in his hand and took out a white card from it. It was written that both pieces of calligraphy were authentic. The content of the card was revealed on the big screen, and the venue suddenly boiled over. Oh my God, these 2 pieces of calligraphy are authentic works of Yan Jinqing. How is that possible? The Japanese are so cunning. They actually took out 2 authentic works for appraisal. Fortunately, the young man has good eyesight. Otherwise, he would have been cheated by them. Obviously, the Wuxia side had won the first round of appraisal. Guofeng was full of joy, but he was still dizzy. He asked Qin Haodong, What the hell is going on? How can 2 pieces of calligraphy be exactly the same and both be authentic? Qin Haodong said, Director Guo, you're confused. Did you forget the story of Wuxia's power penetrating the paper? As soon as he said that, Guofeng immediately came to a realization. It turned out that when ancient calligraphers waved their brushes and splashed ink, their poems were vigorous and powerful. They could often penetrate the Xian paper under the brush and reach the next layer. It was said that a master could cover 3 layers of Xian paper. This could explain why 2 works of calligraphy were exactly the same and were both authentic. In fact, if he had calmed down and thought about it, he could have figured out the mystery. Unfortunately, he was in a competition and his nerves had been tense. In addition, Chiba Mieko had misled him at the beginning. Subconsciously, he felt that one of them must be fake. Qin Haodong said to Chiba Mieko, Miss Chiba, did you prepare these 2 collections? It's a good plan, but it's a pity that it will fail. It turned out that Chiba Mieko was proficient in Wuxia culture and knew that the story of Yan Jinqing, the great calligrapher, was about the story of Yan Jinqing. Therefore, she had done everything possible to get 2 authentic works of Yan Jinqing for appraisal. She could kill two birds with one stone. On the one hand, she could mislead the Wuxia appraisal experts. On the other hand, if the Wuxia side gave a wrong appraisal result, it would be a joke. Imagine how shameful it would be for a nation to be defeated by its own classic. The plan was beautiful, but unfortunately, she had met Qin Haodong. Nothing could hide from his powerful spirit. Chiba Mieko snorted and said, "Don't be too proud. This is only the first collection." After saying that, she waved to the audience. Two neon people came up and put away the two works. At the same time, they carried two wooden boxes up. Everyone's eyes were attracted to these two wooden boxes. They didn't know what was inside, but they seemed to be very heavy. Chiba Mieko opened one of the wooden boxes and took something out. Suddenly there was an uproar. It was a bronze animal head, the sheep head of the 12 zodiac animals. Qin Haodong was shocked at first, but then he was overjoyed. He had not expected to see the bronze head of the 12 zodiac animals again so soon. He could even feel the seal formation on the bronze head. He secretly decided that he had to get this bronze head, or at least get the upper-level spirit stone inside. Now, only the upper-level spirit stone could help him break through quickly. The audience also became restless. The 12 zodiac animal heads had an extraordinary meaning for the Wuxia people. Now, 8 of them had returned to Wuxia and the other 4 were missing. The sheep head was among them. No one had expected that it would be in the hands of the Yagyu family in Neon. Chiba Mieko held the bronze head in her hands and smiled at the audience. She said, "I know that the thing in my hands means a lot to Wuxia. Today I'll give you a chance. Let's see if you can take it back." As she said that, she opened another wooden box and took out another identical sheep head. Then she continued, "This bronze head came from the Summer Palace in Wuxia. It was lost to the Yagyu family a long time ago. In order to prove that the casting technology of Neon is not inferior to that of Wuxia, the Yagyu family hired a skilled craftsman to make another imitation. In our opinion, this imitation is exactly the same as the one from Wuxia. There is no difference. Today I brought both. As long as the experts in Wuxia can choose the real one, we will immediately give it to Wuxia. If the experts in Wuxia can't tell which one is real and which one is fake, then there is nothing we can do but keep it in Neon. At the same time, it will prove that our casting technology is not inferior to that of Wuxia." Qin Haodong thought to himself, "It seems that Neon has been preparing for this cultural exchange for a long time. Every move they made was a trap. If they were not careful, Wuxia would lose face." It was a pity that the Neon people had not expected that he, the reborn immortal emperor, would be involved. The two sheep heads looked the same to others, but he could tell at a glance that one of them was running the sealing formation of the Yuan sect. It was obvious which one was real and which one was fake. Guofeng's face suddenly became serious. He was very clear about the significance of the 12 zodiac animals to Wuxia. If he missed the opportunity to take back the sheep head, he would not be able to forgive himself, not to mention the public opinion. After Chiba Mieko finished speaking, she put the two sheep heads on the table and said to Guofeng and Qin Haodong, "You two can start the appraisal. Don't miss this precious opportunity. Otherwise, as the old Wuxia saying goes, you will not be able to face your elders again." "Don't worry, we won't take the wrong thing." Qin Haodong said to Guofeng, "Director Guo, let me have a look first. If I'm not sure, then you can take action." Guofeng knew that Qin Haodong was saving face for him. He said, "Brother Qin, you must take back the treasure of Wuxian. Don't worry, I won't let you down." Qin Haodong walked in front of the two sheep heads. In order to distinguish them, he had pasted a number on them. The one with the magic formation was pasted with number 1, and the fake one was pasted with number 2. Everyone's eyes were focused on Qin Haodong, expecting him to bring back the treasure of Wuxia. Qin Haodong held the two sheep heads in his hands and looked at them. In fact, it was all for show. Then he put the sheep head number 1 back into the wooden box. Everyone was stunned, including Chiba Mieko. She did not understand how he was appraising it. Of course, he was not doing this to appraise it, but to deceive people. The moment the sheep head was put into the wooden box, he unlocked the sealing formation of the Yuan sect. Then he used his divine mind to put the upper-level spirit stone into the storage ring. Then he resealed it. Chapter 263. Everything was done smoothly. The whole process only took a second or two. When the animal head was taken out again, it looked the same as before. No one knew that the spirit stone had been taken away. Qin Haodong was relieved. The spirit stone finally belonged to him. He had not expected to receive such a gift at a cultural exchange meeting. He held the number 1 bronze head and said to Chiba Mieko, "I've identified it. This is the real one." "Qin-kun, are you sure? Don't you want to take a closer look?" Chiba Mieko's heart was in turmoil. She naturally knew which sheep head was the real one, but she did not understand how Qin Haodong had done it. He had casually put it in a wooden box and then taken it out. What kind of unique identification method was that? There's no need to look anymore. I'm sure it's the one. Qin Haodong turned to Guofeng and said, Director Guo, is this okay? Guofeng now had complete trust in Qin Haodong. He nodded and said, Brother Qin, what do you think? Let's choose this one. If we make a wrong choice, I'll take responsibility. There was complete silence below the stage. There were nearly 1,000 people in the venue, but not a single sound could be heard. They were all looking at the stage nervously. Some even held their breath. Everyone knew the importance of this choice. If they made the right choice, they could bring the national treasure back to their country. If they made the wrong choice, they would become a joke all over the world. Seeing the determination in Qin Haodong and Guofeng's eyes, Chiba Mieko felt bitter. Before bringing the sheep head to the Celestial Empire, the Yaguas had had a fierce debate. The opposing side believed that the sheep head had been in Neon for a century and its market value had exceeded 200 million yuan. It was not worth it to use it as a bet. The opposing side believed that the sheep head was particularly important to the Celestial Empire. If they used it to attack the Celestial Empire's appraisal experts, the influence would be unprecedented. Once they succeeded, the Celestial Empire would lose face in front of the world. Therefore it was worth the risk. The most important thing was that the fake sheep head was no different from the real one. They had even invited many antique experts to identify it, but no one could tell it apart. If the Yaguas hadn't numbered it in advance, they wouldn't have been able to tell which one was the real one. Under such circumstances, there was only a 50% chance that the Chinese would be able to retrieve the genuine goat's head. It was completely worth the risk. The debate between the two sides was very fierce. In the end, Chiba Mieko stood firmly on the side of agreement, which made the master of the Yagu family agree to bring the sheep head to the Celestial Empire. But now, Qin Haodong had easily taken away the genuine sheep's head. Another conspiracy of the Yagu family had come to nothing. In the Celestial Empire's language, it was like trying to steal a chicken but failing to succeed. Even if Chiba Mieko had a special identity, she would be condemned by all parties after returning home. While she was in a daze, Xian Duoduo did not hesitate and excitedly opened the box in his hand. In his opinion, as long as Qin Haodong was certain about something, he would not be wrong. This number 1 sheep head was definitely the authentic one that had been lost in Wuxia. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the box was opened. Inside was a small white card, on which was written number 1 is genuine. Seeing the image displayed on the big screen, the venue was silent at first. After a few seconds of silence, it suddenly erupted like a tsunami. Hooray, our national treasure is finally back. Dr. Qin is so awesome. Long live Dr. Qin. Dr. Qin, you're our hero. We love you. Dr. Qin, I want to marry you. I want to give birth to many children for you. Guofeng reached out and stroked the bronze head. He was so excited that his eyes were full of tears. Below the stage, even Gao Fengwen, Tang Qingji, and the other old men were jumping with excitement. Although Lang Sanyuan disliked Qin Haodong very much as a Celestial Empire man, he still cheered with excitement. In the entire venue except for the Neon people who looked gloomy, Qin Haodong was the calmest one. This kind of choice was not difficult for him. Compared to the bronze head, he valued the upper-level spirit stone more. At this time it was already in his pocket. Chiba Mieko took a deep breath and adjusted her depressed mood. Then she asked, Qin-kun, can you tell me how you identified it? Qin Haodong looked at her with a smile and said jokingly, it's very simple. I don't like it. No one had expected him to give such an answer. At first, the audience burst into laughter and then they shouted together, we don't like it either. Of course, Chiba Mieko did not believe this answer. However, a hero was judged by success or failure. No matter what, he had guessed correctly. At the end of this round of identification, the sheep head had become a Celestial Empire item according to the previous agreement. Gao Fengwen had sent someone to take it away. This time, Neon had prepared a total of 3 collections. According to the best of 3 they had lost. However, for the sake of face they still had to take out the last collection. Since the beginning of the competition, Neon had been defeated again and again. They were looking forward to winning one round at least to save face. Chiba Mieko waved her hand at the audience. 2 more Neon people brought up 2 cardboard boxes. The audience looked up excitedly. The wooden box had contained the bronze head of the 12 zodiac animals. They wondered what the Neon people had brought up this time. Chiba Mieko opened the box and carefully took out 2 things. They were two gorgeous women's tricolor figurines. Tang Sankai. It's Tang Sankai. Someone under the stage had already shouted. The two women's tricolor figurines were about 30 centimeters tall and had different faces. One seemed to be dancing, while the other was standing there with a leisurely and elegant expression. The figures were very plump, fully demonstrating the aesthetic view of the Tang dynasty that fat was beautiful. The two women's clothes were very bold. They had very low necklines which were no weaker than modern low-cut dresses. They looked very sexy and beautiful. Chiba Mieko said to Guofeng and Qin Haodong, "I don't need to say more. I think you two know that this is the famous Tang Sankai in Celestial Empire. Please identify which one is real and which one is fake." "I'll do it." Guofeng had always studied ancient Celestial Empire porcelain. He took out a magnifying glass, walked over and began to carefully observe the two women's tricolor figurines. Qin Haodong did not speak. He watched quietly. In fact, he had already sensed that the two tricolor figurines had no spiritual chi at all. They were completely fake. It seemed that the Japanese had really put a lot of effort into this cultural exchange. First, they had made two authentic works of Yen Jinxing, then they had made two bronze heads of the 12 zodiac animals, one real and one fake. Now they had brought out two fake Tang Sankai for the Celestial Empire to guess. It had to be said that their strategy was very good. It was a pity that they had met Qin Haodong. Although he did not study much about ancient Celestial Empire culture, it was easy for him to distinguish the authenticity of the antiques. Guofeng looked at them for a long time. Finally, he turned around and called Qin Haodong, saying, "Brother Qin, I'm not sure." He pointed to one of the women's tricolor figurines and said, "This work is not only colorful, but the glaze is bright and the shape is very delicate. According to the traditional appraisal method of Tang Sankai, there is no problem with the opening on it." The opening Guofeng was talking about was the crack caused by the difference between the glaze and the glaze. After the Tang Sankai was unearthed, this kind of opening would generally become a prominent feature to identify the authenticity. Qin Haodong said, "Can't you see the problem?" He had to admit that the two fakes were so good that they could be mistaken for the real ones. He could not see the problem at all unless he used his spirit to sense the spiritual chi. However, he could not use this kind of thing as evidence, so he hoped that Guofeng could find the problem, which would save him a lot of trouble. Guofeng thought for a moment and said, "The problem is that they are too perfect. Even the tricolor figurines in the Celestial Empire Museum are not as perfect as these two." Chiba Mieko said, "Mr. Guo, although I don't know much about antique appraisal, I don't think that being too perfect can be a standard to identify the authenticity, right? No one said that the tricolor figurines in the Celestial Empire Museum are the best. Maybe the one we have is better than the one you have." Guofeng was silent. This was exactly the reason why he couldn't figure it out. If these two female tricolored figurines were fakes, why couldn't he find any problem with them? If they were real, it didn't feel right. These two figurines were too perfect to be believed. Chiba Mieko sneered and said, "What do you think? When can you give me the result of the appraisal?" "I can give it to you now," Qin Haodong said. "These two things are both fakes." "They are both fakes." Guofeng shook his head. He could not believe that such good things were fakes. However, he believed Qin Haodong's words. He turned to Chiba Mieko and said, "Did you hear that? We have concluded that these two are fakes." Chiba Mieko smiled and said, "Since you are so sure, let's reveal the answer." Then she nodded to Chen Duoduo. Chen Duoduo opened the lid of the box in his hand and took out another piece of paper. When everyone's eyes focused on the piece of paper, they found that the first tricolor figurine was the real one, and the second tricolor figurine was the fake one. The audience was stunned. This time, Qin Haodong and Guofeng had guessed wrong. However, no one cared too much about the result. After all, they had already won 2 rounds. According to the best of 3 rules, Wuxia had already won. An imperceptible smile appeared on Chiba Mieko's face. Although she had lost in the treasure appraisal round, she had not lost too badly. She had finally won a round in front of Qin Haodong, the monster. Just as she was about to ask someone to put away the 2 tricolor figurines, Qin Haodong said, "Wait a minute." Chiba Mieko asked in surprise, "Mr. Qin, do you have any other questions?" "I don't think the answer you gave is right. These 2 tricolor figurines are fakes." As soon as he said that, the audience became restless again. No one had thought of questioning the answer given by the Neon people. After all, the first 2 rounds had been very fair. Could it be that the Neon people had cheated and written the fakes as the real ones? Given the Neon people's cunning character, they might have really done that. Chiba Mieko's expression changed as she said, Mr. Qin, I admire your attainments in the tea ceremony and antiques, but you have to have a basis for your words. If you doubt our conclusion, please point out the problem with the first tricolor figurine. Qin Haodong did not answer her. Instead, he turned to look at Guofeng and asked, Director Guo, if antiques like these are fakes, can they be fakes? I'm not sure. Generally speaking, it's very difficult to fake them. Although Guofeng was an expert in ancient literature, he was not very good at counterfeiting antiques. Even if some things were sometimes identified as fakes, they could not be smashed. Chapter 264. Everyone was shocked. What was this young man doing? Was he crazy? How could he break other people's things? Chiba Mieko was shocked at first, then she said angrily, What are you going to do? Why did you break our things? Do you know how much this tricolor figurine is worth? It's worth at least 30 million yuan. Guofeng was also shocked. At Lin Xiaoyan's birthday party, Qin Haodong had first broken Lin Pingchao's jade Buddha statue, and then he had destroyed Wu Daozi's lotus painting. He had not expected to repeat the same thing today. He had broken the Japanese-made Tang Sankai in public, the one that had been recognized as authentic. Qin Haodong didn't think so. This thing was obviously fake, but it had to be fake in front of him. He had to find its loopholes. He ignored Chiba Mieko and squatted down to find some evidence in the pile of debris. Unexpectedly, he saw a small note made of A4 paper. He picked up the paper and saw 3 big words on the front. You win? He turned the note over and saw a few lines of small words on it. You're right. This Tang Sankai is fake. I'm proud that my skills are unparalleled in the world. No one can identify a fake made by me. Since you can see it, I can only say that you win. There was also a signature under the note, which said Ghost Hand. It was said that there was an unspoken rule in the antique counterfeiting industry. In order to show respect for the ancestors, no matter how real they were, they had to leave a loophole. This Ghost Hand was also a wonderful person. He had left a loophole in the Tang Sankai fake. No wonder Guofeng had been looking for it with a magnifying glass for a long time but had not found a loophole. Only someone like Qin Haodong would knock open such a treasure that was worth tens of millions of yuan. However, this had saved him a lot of trouble. He had originally wanted to find a loophole in the porcelain fragments, but now it seemed that it was completely unnecessary. The others also saw Qin Haodong find a note in the porcelain fragments, but they did not understand what it was. He stood up and handed the note to Chiba Mieko. He sneered and said, The evidence is irrefutable. What else do you want to deny? Chiba Mieko took it and looked at it. She said with a straight face, This doesn't mean anything. Maybe it belongs to the people of the Tang dynasty. If it's a product made by a folk imitating the official kiln, it's still a genuine Tang Sankai. Qin Haodong sneered. Miss Mieko, I don't know how much you know about Wuxia. Did A4 paper appear in the Tang dynasty? Could it be that the people of the Tang dynasty knew how to use simplified characters? Did the people of the Tang dynasty call fake goods fake? The audience below the stage roared with laughter and shouted one after another, A fake is a fake, don't deny it. Do you have any common sense? The simplified Chinese characters have only been around for a few decades. How dare you say that it's from the Tang dynasty? A loss is a loss, don't try to deny it. Chiba Mieko was speechless. She was not good at antiques. The collection had been provided by the Yagyu family, and the answers had been given by them. Yagyu Hirai's face was livid. He had just seen that Qin Haodong's attainments in antiques were unparalleled. Qin Haodong had guessed correctly twice in a row, so he had played a trick and asked his men to change the answers of the 2 Tang Sankai. He had thought that he would be able to win the game and save some face for Neon. He had not expected that he would not be able to get away with it and would be pointed out by Qin Haodong on the spot. Qin Haodong continued, Miss Chiba Mieko, don't blame yourself too much. It's not your fault. It's just that Neon can't compare with Wuxia in terms of casting technology or making fake goods. The difference is too big. Chiba Mieko's cheeks were red. After 3 games, the Neon Nation had completely lost. We admit defeat. After saying that, she hurried off the stage with a livid face. She didn't even want the fake Tang Sankai anymore. Wuxia is mighty. Dr. Qin is mighty. Long live Wuxia. Wuxia will win. Mr. Qin, you're so awesome. I want to have a baby with you too. The audience was very excited, but Qin Haodong was also a little speechless. That bearded man was shouting that he wanted to have a baby with him. What the hell was that? After Chiba Mieko stepped off the stage, Yagyu Hirai comforted her. Miss Mieko, don't think too much. There are still 3 games left. We still have a chance. It's all Qin Haodong's fault. Our original plan was perfect. If he hadn't appeared, we would have won. Chiba Mieko said angrily. She had seen clearly on the stage that Guofeng had fallen into their carefully designed trap every time. However, Qin Haodong had quickly corrected them. Otherwise they would not have lost the game, let alone the bronze head of the 12 zodiacs. I really don't know where such a monster came from. He knows the tea ceremony, but he is also proficient in antiques. Yagyu Hirai gritted his teeth and said, but don't worry. We will win the next game. I don't believe that this guy is also proficient in painting. Chiba Mieko said, that's true. Even if he knows how to paint, he can't compare to Mr. Koyama Lizzie. On the stage, Chien Duo was a little excited after winning 2 games in a row. He said happily, next, let's have the third game of the cultural exchange. The representative of Neon and the representative of Jiangnan City will compete in traditional Chinese painting. The audience applauded warmly. In their opinion, they had already won the first 2 rounds. In the third round of the competition, Wuxia would definitely win. It was no wonder that everyone was so optimistic. In recent years, under the stimulation of the commodity economy, traditional Chinese painting could be regarded as a relatively good inheritance and development among the ancient Chinese culture. Mr. Tang Qingji, the president of the Jiangnan Calligraphy and Painting Association, was a well-known painter in Wuxia. Chien Duo continued, in order to ensure the fairness of the competition, we specially invited Mr. Gompos, a world-famous traditional Chinese painter from M country, to be the referee of this game. Let's welcome Mr. Gompos to the stage with applause. After he finished speaking, a bearded Caucasian man walked onto the stage. Qin Haodong asked Tang Qingji curiously, Mr. Tang, what's going on? Isn't he a master of traditional Chinese painting? Why did they invite a person from M country? Tang Qingji said, Gompos is very famous in the painting and calligraphy world. He was originally an oil painter from M country, but he suddenly fell in love with our traditional Chinese painting when he was 30 years old, so he came to Wuxia to study painting. He has been studying for 10 years, and now he is a well-known traditional Chinese painter in the world. In order to ensure the fairness of this competition, after communicating with the Neon delegation, we specially invited Mr. Gompos to be the referee of this painting and calligraphy competition. On the one hand, he is a real person from M country, so he will not have any subjective bias. On the other hand, he is a painting fanatic and is extremely rigorous in painting. The score given is absolutely fair and will not be affected by any factors. Qin Haodong nodded. He didn't expect that there was such an extraordinary person in the painting and calligraphy world. He was indeed the best candidate to be the referee of this competition. Tang Qingji said confidently, little brother, you just won 2 games in a row. Leave the next one to me. Gompos will ensure the fairness of the competition. Although I am not a top painter in Wuxia, I am more than enough to deal with a few Neon people. As he spoke, he stood up and simply tidied up his Tang suit, ready to go on stage to participate in the competition. At this moment, Chien Duo said, next, let's welcome Mr. Koyama Lizzie, a traditional Chinese painter from Neon. As soon as he finished speaking, a man wearing gold-rimmed glasses and neon clothes walked onto the stage. The man was thin, about 40 years old, and his face was full of arrogance. Tang Qingji, who was about to go on stage, was shocked when he saw the man. He plopped back into his chair. Why is he here? Qin Haodong didn't expect Tang Qingji to have such a big reaction. He asked in surprise, Mr. Tang, do you know this Neon man? Tang Qingji said with a pale face, he is not a Neon man. His ancestors have been Wuxia people for 18 generations. He has nothing to do with Neon. Qin Haodong became more and more confused. He asked, what the hell is going on? I just heard his name is Koyama Lizzie. How could he be Wuxia? Tang Qingji took a deep breath, calmed himself down and began to tell Qin Haodong. It turned out that Koyama Lizzie's real name was Lizzie. He was a pure Wuxia man, and he was from the same hometown as Tang Qingji. Lizzie had shown his talent in painting when he was very young. Later he was admitted to the Wuxia Academy of Fine Arts, the best academy for painting. During his studies in the academy, Lizzie had learned painting from several masters and had made great achievements. He had become famous in the Wuxia art circle before he was 30 years old. Qin Haodong was even more confused when he heard this. He asked, if so, why did he go to Neon? Tang Qingji said, it was all because of a competition. When Tang Qingji was 30 years old, China held the most prestigious Chinese art competition in the country. The prize money for this competition was very high, and it was very influential. Other than the famous Chinese art masters, many other artists signed up for the competition, including Tang Qingji himself. What was the result? How did he Lizzie do? What was Mr. Tang's ranking? Qin Haodong asked with great interest. He Lizzie showed amazing talent in that competition. He painted a vivid peony painting with the charm of traditional painting. Many people thought that he would win the first place in the competition after seeing his painting. He thought so too. Tang Qingji said with a nostalgic look on his face. However, when the results of the competition came out, he Lizzie didn't win the championship as everyone had expected. Instead, he got second place and I got 21st place. Qin Haodong didn't expect that Tang Qingji was so much better than he Lizzie. He asked, second place is a good result. Did he go to Neon because of that? Of course. He Lizzie believed that there was a shady deal in the competition. He thought that the judges of the competition had robbed him of the championship. He went to Neon out of anger and married a Neon woman soon. It wouldn't be a big deal if he just married a Neon woman. But he changed his name to Koyama Lizzie and slandered Wuxia in public many times. He denied that he was a Wuxia man. At the same time, he represented Neon in a world painting competition and won the championship. Qin Haodong frowned slightly. He Lizzie could question the result of the competition, but he couldn't betray a nation because of it. He shouldn't slander Wuxia and be an enemy of Wuxia. Anyway, he is a descendant of Wuxia. Without the cultivation of Wuxia, he wouldn't have achieved what he has today. What he did was no different from treason. In other words, he is a traitor, which is more hateful than what Li Donghai did. Tang Qingji sighed again and said, ever since the incident, the whole painting and calligraphy circle in Wuxia despised he Lizzie's behavior. But no matter what, he's really good at traditional Chinese painting. I can't compare to him. Chapter 265. After hearing the conversation between the two, Guofan exclaimed, what? Is he Lizzie? That bastard is challenging Wuxia on behalf of Neon. He Lizzie's history had caused a stir in Wuxia more than a decade ago. Qin Haodong didn't know about it because he was too young, but everyone in Guofeng's age knew about it. Now that he knew that Koyama Lizzie was he Lizzie, he was so angry that he gnashed his teeth. As the team leader, Gao Fengwen thought about something else. He asked, are you sure you're not he Lizzie's opponent? Tang Qingji shook his head and said with a wry smile, he Lizzie was second in the competition and I was only 21st. The gap between us was huge. Painting is mainly about talent, not personal effort. Over the years, the gap between us has only grown. I'll be humiliated if I go up. At the same time, he Lizzie was talking to Qian Duo on the stage. He Lizzie said in Neon language, Mr. Qian, I want to add a condition for the next competition. Qian Duo frowned. More than a decade ago, he was in his 20s, which was the most nationalistic period of his life. He remembered the image of Koyama Lizzie very well and immediately recognized who he was. He Lizzie, I know you're from Wuxia or you used to be. I hope you can speak to me directly in Wuxia. He Lizzie smiled and said, I'm sorry Mr. Qian. I've learned a more advanced language and I've forgotten the low-level language. Now I can only speak the noble Neon language. Please translate for me. Qian Duo was so angry that his eyes were on fire. If it weren't for his identity as a host, he would have rushed up and slapped this guy who had forgotten his ancestors. He suppressed his anger and said, I'm sorry, I'm just a host. I have no obligation to translate for you. Well, it doesn't matter. I have my own translator. He Lizzie waved to the audience and a young man in his 20s came up. Unlike Li Donghai, this man worked as a translator in Neon, but he was a Neon native and learned Wuxia as a foreign language. As a result, a strange scene appeared on the stage. A Wuxia man was speaking Neon, and a Neon man was helping him translate into Wuxia. It was estimated that such a scene was rare in the entire history of mankind. He Lizzie said in Neon, Mr. Koyama Lizzie thinks that today's game is a bit dull. It's not interesting to just decide the winner. He hopes to add a bet. If Mr. Koyama Lizzie loses, he will kneel down to the Wuxia team in public to show respect. Similarly, if the Chinese lost, they would also have to kneel down to Mr. Koyama Lizzie. Would the Chinese have the courage to accept this challenge? Qian Duo said angrily, He Lizzie, do you know what you're doing? Of course I know. I will return the humiliation I suffered to China. Koyama Lizzie smiled and said, also Mr. Qian is a host. I hope that you will have a bit of professionalism and call me by my name, Koyama Lizzie. I'm now a noble Neon, not a lowly Wuxia person. You? Qian Duo was so angry that his entire body trembled. At this time, some people under the stage also recognized he Lizzie's identity and quickly spread his story. Suddenly there was an uproar. Lizzie, you have forgotten your ancestors. How dare you set foot on the land of Wuxia? Get out of here, traitor. Dog. Traitor, get out. Shameless. Don't forget who trained you. Don't forget where you learned traditional Chinese painting. How dare you challenge Wuxia? The audience under the stage was very excited. If there were not many security guards to maintain order, they would have rushed to the stage and torn Lizzie into pieces. Qin Haodong also became angrier and angrier. Neon had really deliberately planned for this trip to Wuxia. They had even brought a big traitor like Lizzie. If Wuxia's traditional Chinese painting lost to such a shameless guy, the impact on the world would be absolutely unprecedented. Lizzie, who was on the stage, was not moved at all. He looked at the excited people under the stage and said with a smile, "You Wuxia people are good at talking. If you have the ability, come up and challenge me. If you have the ability, accept my additional conditions. If I lose, I will immediately kneel down and apologize to you. Do you have the ability?" After that, he turned to look at Chen Duo and said, "I've been here for a long time. Why haven't I seen the representative of Wuxia? Do they dare not accept the challenge? Don't admit defeat directly. That's too boring. We have to accept his challenge and teach this traitor a lesson. Let him know what Wuxia's traditional Chinese painting is. Mr. Tang, teach this shameless guy a lesson. Make him kneel down." People under the stage only knew how hateful what Lizzie had done, but no one knew his attainments and achievements in painting as well as Tang Qingji did. Therefore, they asked the Wuxia side to accept the challenge as soon as possible. In their opinion, it was easy to defeat a villain like Lizzie. Seeing this scene, Gao Fengwen and the others on the rostrum were livid. Finally, Tang Qingji gritted his teeth and said, "Brother Gao, I'll go up and have a try." Gao Fengwen said, "Old Tang, don't do it if you're not 100% sure. At worst we can admit defeat." Tang Qingji insisted, "No. We can admit defeat to anyone, but we can't admit defeat like this kind of person who has forgotten his ancestors. But with this guy's arrogance, if he really loses, it will be even more difficult to deal with it." Gao Fengwen held back his words. If he really lost, he would have to kneel down and apologize according to Lizzie's proposal. That would be even more humiliating. It would be better to admit defeat directly. Tang Qingji naturally understood the meaning of Gao Fengwen's words. He stared at him and said, "Don't worry. If I lose, I'll kill myself. I won't kneel down to this traitor even if I'm beaten to death." At this time Guofeng said, "Okay, you two stop fighting. Brother Qin has already gone up." The two looked up. Sure enough, Qin Haodong was already standing on the stage. Can he do it? Tang Qingji looked worried. Although he had heard about Qin Haodong's deeds from Guofeng, he felt that it was too exaggerated. He did not think that this young man could compare with a real painter, let alone the extremely talented Lizzie. Guofeng said firmly, "Don't worry. Brother Qin is an extraordinary person. I don't think it's possible without him." After seeing Qin Haodong on the stage, the audience cheered. They did not think too much. They just thought that this young man had just surprised them twice, so this time it should not be an accident. On the Neon side, Yagyu Hirai looked nervous. This bastard, he's on the stage again. Is he good at painting? Logically speaking, it shouldn't be. No one can be proficient in so many industries at such a young age. Chiba Mieko said that, but she had a bad feeling in her heart. She always felt that Qin Haodong would bring them more trouble. Chen Duo looked relieved. He had seen with his own eyes that Qin Haodong had quickly drawn Wu Daozi's lotus painting with the left and right swimming dragon technique. This kind of superb skill should not be inferior to the fake neon in front of him. Lizzie looked at Qin Haodong disdainfully and said, "Young man, don't like to be in the limelight. Even if you have some skills, you will not be my opponent. Hurry up and replace that old guy Tang Qingji." Qin Haodong smiled and said, "People like you who don't even know who your ancestors are not worthy of Mr. Tang's help." Lizzie's face darkened as he said, "It seems that you won't give up until you see the coffin. Since you want to compete with me, do you dare to accept my conditions?" "Of course, or I won't come up." Qin Haodong said coldly, "And I think your conditions are too lenient. I also want to add one more condition. No matter who loses, they will destroy their own hands and never paint again. How about that? Do you dare to accept it? If not, go back to Neon and don't come to Wuxia for the rest of your life." He was completely infuriated by this traitor. He had to make this guy pay the price today. Lizzie was shocked. He didn't expect Qin Haodong to make such a bet. He knew very well that the reason why Neon had accepted him was because of his painting skills. If both of his hands were destroyed, the Neon people would definitely kick him out. Tang Qingji was also shocked and said quickly, "This young man is too impulsive. He doesn't know how good Lizzie is at painting. Hurry up and stop him. It was obvious that he was not optimistic about Qin Haodong's chances of winning. Guofeng was a little worried, but he still said, I have never seen Brother Qin do something he is not sure of. Since he said so, he must have his reasons. Let's not interfere. Gao Fengwen thought for a moment and said, yes, although Dr. Qin is young, he is not an impulsive person. I think he is sure that he will win. Seeing that both of them said so, Tang Qingji didn't say anything else. He could only watch quietly. Seeing that Lizzie did not speak for a long time, Qin Haodong asked sarcastically, what? Don't you dare to bet? Lizzie was in a bit of a dilemma. Qin Haodong had agreed to his conditions. If he didn't agree to the conditions put forward by the other party, he would immediately be in a weak position. However, from another perspective, few people in the whole of Wuxia could be his opponent, unless those old guys at the level of Mount Tai and the Big Dipper came out. The young man in front of him had just shouted such a bet to scare him away. Thinking of this, Lizzie suddenly became confident and said, why not? As long as you dare to draw, I will dare to accept it. Seeing that Lizzie had agreed, Qin Haodong turned to Gompos, who was sitting in the referee's seat, and said, Mr. Gompos, you heard our bet. Can you be a notary? Gompos spread out his hands and said, as a painter, I really don't want to see this kind of thing happen, but since both of you have agreed, I can be a notary. This foreigner had studied painting in Wuxia for 10 years, so he spoke Wuxia very fluently. After the two sides negotiated, the competition officially began. Lizzie said confidently, I'll go first. After that, he went to the drawing table set up by the staff, picked up the paintbrush and began to paint. At this time there was a lot of noise under the stage. Everyone wanted to use their own way to affect the state of painting of the traitor. However, the moment Lizzie picked up the paintbrush, he seemed to have changed into a different person. He looked serious and had a calm temperament. He really had the demeanor of a master. As time went by, the outline of a picture had appeared on the electronic screen. It was a peony standing proudly among hundreds of flowers, with a noble temperament, like the king of flowers. Tang Qingji sighed and said, Lizzie is best at painting peonies in his life. Today this guy has used his unique skill. It seems that he is determined to win. It will be too difficult for Brother Qin to win. The status of the contestants must be equal. You are a dog raised by the Neon people, and this is a dog raised by the Wuxia people. You two dogs are just opponents. Being called a lackey in public, Lizzie flew into a rage out of humiliation and shouted, bullshit. Are you going to compete or not? If not, I'll cut off your hand. Qin Haodong didn't care. He turned to Gompos and said, Mr. Gompos, can I let this dog compete in painting? Gompos was also a little confused. He had never seen such a competition. He thought for a moment and said, no matter what method you use, as long as you take out a painting in the end, it's okay. But there's one thing. You have to fulfill the final bet yourself. Qin Haodong looked at Lizzie and said, see? The rules allow it. Today I'll use this dog to win against you. Boy, you're just playing with words. When you lose, I'll cut off your hand. Lizzie was so angry that he almost went crazy. However, he didn't believe that a dog could win against him. He secretly made up his mind to cut off the hands of this abominable toy boy later. Tang Qingji, who was under the stage, stamped his feet and beat his chest and said, this young man is still too impulsive. Although he looks very happy, he will definitely lose this competition. Lang Sanyuan shook his head and said, I thought he had great skills. It turns out that he's a brainless guy. Gao Fengwen and Guofeng were also nervous. They had thought that as long as Qin Haodong could draw the lotus painting, he would at least not lose. They hadn't expected that he would get a dog. On the foreigner's side, Yagyu Hirai laughed and said, idiot, a complete idiot. I was a little worried that he would disrupt our plan, but now it seems that it's completely unnecessary. Later, we'll cut off his hands so that he won't be able to participate in the Chinese medicine competition. Chiba Mieko also relaxed her frown. Qin Haodong had always been a big problem for her, so it would be best to get rid of him. However, she still couldn't understand. This young man didn't look like a brainless person. How could he do such an impulsive thing? Qin Haodong didn't care what the others thought. He directly asked the staff to fetch 3 buckets of water and a small bucket of ink. After everything was ready, he rolled the little poodle in the ink and threw it on the rice paper on the table. Seeing that Qin Haodong was not joking and had really put a puppy on the paper, there was an uproar on and off the stage. Using a dog to paint, wanting to win over a real artist? Even if one thought about it with one's heels, it was also impossible. The little poodle was only 3 or 4 months old. It had been in a panic when it left its owner's arms. It had just rolled in the ink and immediately ran forward after being released. Maybe because it was too flustered and its feet were a little slippery after being stained with ink, it suddenly fell to the ground after running a few steps. The ink on its body was black. The little poodle was even more confused. It got up and continued to run forward. Soon it ran through the rice paper. Qin Haodong took the little poodle and turned around to give it to Qian Duoduo. "Brother Qian, please help me clean it and send it back to the little girl." Qian Duoduo didn't understand what he was going to do, but he could only do as he was told. No one paid attention to this. Everyone's eyes were focused on Qin Haodong's drawing paper. Because the paper had been dipped in too much ink, the footprints left by the little poodle and the marks that it had just fallen on were all covered with ink, making it look like a pool of water. The footprints were better. They were shaped like plum blossoms. However, the marks it had just fallen on were a mess. They didn't look like anything. "Qin Haodong, this is the painting you made with a dog. Do you think you can beat me with this?" Elizzy laughed. His face was full of ferocity. He seemed to have seen the scene of Qin Haodong admitting defeat. Yagyu Hirai, who was under the stage, laughed unscrupulously and shouted, "Is this also called a painting? Isn't it much better to get someone to sprinkle some ink on it?" Chiba Mieko did not speak, but there was a smile at the corner of her mouth. She had used all the thinking methods in her mind, but she had not thought of a way for Qin Haodong to turn the tables. Although the Wuxia people under the stage did not laugh, everyone was disappointed. In their opinion, Qin Haodong was bound to lose. How could such a messy painting be compared with the peony painting? Gampo shook his head. Obviously he did not agree with the painting in front of him. He said to Qin Haodong, "Mr. Qin, is your painting done?" Qin Haodong said, "Don't worry. There's still a little bit left." "What do you mean? Didn't you say you wanted to make a painting with a dog? The dog has been taken away. Do you still want to continue painting?" Lizzy's face was full of ferocity. "Since you let the dog be your opponent, of course I won't use the brush. However, this painting is still lacking the last step." The last step? What did he mean? Everyone's heads were dizzy. They could not figure out what this young man wanted to do. Could he change the result without using the brush? Yagyu Hirai said with a smile. "He lost and still doesn't admit it. Let's see how long he can pretend." Tang Qingji, Gao Fengwen, and the others were all confused by what they saw. Lizzy sneered and said, "Then hurry up. I want to see what you have to say after this last step." "It'll be done soon." Qin Haodong was still calm. He went to the table, grabbed a corner of the rice paper and shook his wrist gently. With a crashing sound, the Xian paper was already stained with ink. With a shake of his hand, the ink immediately flowed out and covered the entire scroll. Qin Haodong put the rice paper back on the table and said, "It's done." "What do you mean it's done? Isn't this a joke?" The people on and off the stage did not understand. What the hell was Qin Haodong picking up the rice paper and shaking it? Could it be that this was also a way of painting? Now look. Just as everyone was feeling puzzled, someone suddenly yelled out. Everyone's attention was turned back to the painting. Tang Qingji said in a trembling voice, "Oh my God, how is this possible? What did I see?" With a shake of Qin Haodong's hand, the Xian paper, which was in a mess just now, scattered the ink. The footprints left by the little teddy were connected with each other and magically formed a plum blossom picture. The plum blossoms on the picture stood proudly. The ink flowed and formed dry tree trunks. The little teddy's footprints formed plum blossoms sporadically on it. The most amazing thing was that the place where the teddy had just fallen had become two rugged rocks. The traces left by the teddy's fur formed folds on the surface of the strange rocks, which looked more vivid. The peony painting that Lizzy had just drawn gave people a feeling of wealth and prosperity. However, although the winter plum blossom painting in front of them didn't have any flower embellishment, it gave people a feeling of pride and contempt for the wind and frost. The whole audience was silent. No one had expected that Qin Haodong's gentle shaking could create such an extraordinary painting. Yagyu Hirai, who had been laughing unscrupulously, forgot to close his mouth at this time. He was confused and dull. Amazing. It was really amazing. A little teddy who knew nothing could make such a painting. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, no one would have believed it. It's an eye-opener. It's an eye-opener for me today. There were tears in Tang Qingji's eyes as he spoke. As a painter, he naturally knew how difficult Qin Haodong's painting was. It seemed to be a simple shake, but in fact, it required a clear grasp of how much ink was left on the rice paper and a perfect control of the strength and direction. Only in this way could the ink flow to form the tree trunk and finally form a complete painting. All the details had to be perfectly integrated in the brain, and no mistakes could be made. In summary, it could only be described as a magical skill. After a moment of silence, there was a sudden burst of warm applause backstage. The audience seemed to have seen the hope of winning. At least such a painting was not inferior to Lizzie's peony painting. Gampo's face was full of shock. This painting seemed to be a little teddy bear that ran out. This young man did nothing, but in fact the most important thing was the last shake. It was even more important than the finishing touch. If there was a little difference, it would go 1,000 miles wrong and destroy the painting. Qian Duo woke up from the shock and shouted excitedly, "Mr. Gampos, please give your score." Chapter 267. Qin Haodong also turned his head to look at the referee, who was known for his fairness. He didn't know how many points he would get. Although the painting had been made by the little poodle, in fact, it had been completed under his control. The last shake seemed simple, but the strength of the shake, the direction, and the timing were all very particular. As long as there was a little mistake, the whole game would be lost. All of this could only be done by a person with an extremely powerful spirit like him. At this time, Gampos had become the focus of attention. Everyone's eyes were focused on his face. The Wuxia people naturally hoped that he could give a high score, while the Neon side hoped that he would give a score lower than Lizzie's, even by 1 point. Gampos looked at the plum blossom painting in front of him and was silent for a full minute. When everyone was about to collapse, he looked up and said, "Putting aside the painting process, I give it 85 points based on the quality of this painting alone." As soon as he said this, there was a sigh in the field. All the Wuxia people were slightly disappointed. They had thought that Qin Haodong could once again show a miracle and defeat the Neon guy. They hadn't expected that it would still be a draw. Although the Neon side had not been able to win, they were still very satisfied with the result. They had finally gotten a point, although the score looked very embarrassing and disgraceful. Qin Haodong's face was calm, and no change in his emotions could be seen. In his opinion, the score given by Gampos was fair. Indeed, in terms of the quality of this painting alone, it was comparable to Lizzie's peony painting, but it was better in the process and means of painting. Even people who didn't know how to paint could see that Qin Haodong had drawn a painting with a dog. He hadn't even touched the brush. This painting had the same score as Lizzie's peony painting, which had been made with all his strength. In any case, Lizzie had lost. A person fighting a dog to a draw, no matter what, was still a shameful thing. Gampos continued to announce, "I announce that the result of this painting competition is a draw." Just when everyone thought that the game was over, Lizzie suddenly stood up and shouted, "Mr. Gampos, I don't agree with your referee. I think I should be the winner of this game." Everyone present was stunned. Even Yagyu Hirai did not expect Lizzie to object. Everyone could see that Qin Haodong had actually won the game. It was already very lucky for him to get a draw point. Gampos frowned and said, "Mr. He, can you give me a reason?" Lizzie said plausibly, "Everyone has seen this painting just now. The key is the last step. If it weren't for the last shake, it wouldn't even be a painting. In other words, this painting was drawn by a man and a dog. Their total score is the same as mine, so I should be the winner." Everyone was dumbfounded. They didn't expect Lizzie to be so shameless. He was shameless to the extreme. Shameless, simply too shameless. "Traitor, can't you have some shame?" Lizzie, I'll give you 10 dogs. If you have the ability, you can also cooperate to draw a painting." Tang Qingji was so angry that he stared and scolded. Lizzie really doesn't know what shame is. Can't he see that in terms of painting attainments, he and little brother Qin are miles apart? Gao Fengwen said, "That's not surprising. If he knew shame, he wouldn't have done such a thing that he forgot his ancestors." Gampos frowned. Deep down, he also felt that Lizzie's request was a bit shameless. However, Qin Haodong was indeed cooperating with him. Generally speaking, as long as a painting was done by one person, then no one else could touch it, not even to the extent of giving it pointers. In the plum blossom painting just now, the little poodle had first stepped on the plum blossom, and Qin Haodong had completed the whole painting by skillfully shaking it. Both of them were indispensable. Lizzie cried again, "It's not fair to compete with a work created through cooperation." Qin Haodong glanced at him and asked, "What do you think is fair?" Lizzie said, "You relied on cooperation to get the same score as me. It's very simple. You lost this game." After that, he shouted to the audience, "Get me a knife. I'm going to cut off his hands." Hearing his shout, someone immediately brought up a small katana. The audience was in an uproar again. This shameless guy had obviously lost, but he still wanted to cut off Qin Haodong's hands. It was too much. Yagyu Hirai smiled again and said, "The shamelessness of Huaxia people is really beyond my imagination, but I like it." He had already seen that not only this game, but Qin Haodong would also be the enemy of the whole Neon in the future. If he Lizzie could cut off Qin Haodong's hands, he would definitely be very happy to see it. As for whether the process was shameless or not, he did not care at all. Gompos couldn't stand it anymore and said, "Mr. He Lizzie, I think a draw is the best result of this game." He had just figured out that a dog could not paint. Strictly speaking, this painting should be regarded as Qin Haodong's work. On the surface, it was a cooperation between a man and a dog. In fact, the young man's painting level had reached a very high level, so he could do this. He Lizzie had already taken advantage of the situation by ruling a draw. In this case, he still wanted to cut off the opponent's hands, which was really shameless. As a painting addict, he naturally did not want to see a painting genius like Qin Haodong stop here. Originally, he wanted to use the authority of the referee to insist that this game was a draw. Unexpectedly, Qin Haodong said, "Mr. He, what you said is a little reasonable. Let's consider it as cooperation. But I want to ask, how can you admit defeat?" "You want me to admit defeat?" He Lizzie sneered and said, "I'm also a reasonable person. If your painting can score higher than the peony painting, I will naturally admit defeat. But now that you have cooperated with me, I can only say that I have won." Qin Haodong said with a smile, "That seems to make some sense." He Lizzie said proudly, "What do you think? You have nothing to say, right? Then just admit defeat." "Admit defeat? Since you said so, I will make you admit defeat." Qin Haodong said, "In fact, my painting is not completely finished yet. Mr. Gompo's score is a little early." Only then did everyone realize that it was Chen Duo who had just asked for a score. Logically speaking, it should have been Qin Haodong himself who had asked for a score. Gompos said with a slight apology, "Mr. Qin, I was a little reckless. I gave the result without asking for your opinion, but what else can you do? According to the agreement, you can't use a brush." He Lizzie said, "That's right. What else can you do if you can't use a brush? Do you want to shake it a few more times? Let's see what other tricks you can play." He was very confident in his heart. At this time the ink on the painting had dried. Even if Qin Haodong shook the painting, there would be no change. Tang Qingji frowned. He really could not think of any way that Qin Haodong could improve the score of this painting. Yagyu Hirai said nervously, "I don't know what this Huaxia man can do." Chiba Mieko said, "He Lizzie is AB** starred. He should have quit while he was ahead. I have a bad feeling that he is going to lose this competition." Under everyone's attention, Qin Haodong took the plum blossom painting in his hand and slowly rolled it into a cylinder. He blew into the cylinder and then said to Gompos with a smile, "My painting is completely finished. Please give me a score." *CK It's finished just by rolling it up and blowing? What the hell is this? The glasses of everyone present were broken. No one could see what he was doing. Was blowing also a way of painting? Gompos took the painting in his hand with a puzzled face and spread it out on the table again. When his eyes fell on the painting again, he was suddenly stunned. Although the painting just now was called the Winter Plum Blossom Painting, there were rocks and winter plum blossoms, but no plum blossoms. However, this painting was different now. The slightly black flower bud was surrounded by white, like a blooming plum blossom. Whether it was in terms of appearance or artistic conception, it was a level higher than before. "Oh my God, how did you do it?" Gompos had studied painting for many years and had seen many world-famous painters. However, it was the first time he had seen such a magical painting. It was simply a magic painting. He Lizzie was also dumbfounded. He couldn't understand how the plum blossoms in this painting had bloomed. Was this a painting or a magic trick? He cried, "I protest. This is not a painting. This is magic. The protest is invalid. This is Mr. Qin's magical way of painting." Gompos glared at He Lizzie and then said formally, "I will now give the score. Mr. Qin's Winter Plum Blossom painting is 95 points. In this round, Huaxia wins." As soon as he finished speaking, there was a thunderous applause. All the Huaxia people cheered. "Victory! We won again. The fake Japanese lost. Long live Qin Haodong. Long live Qin Haodong. If you don't court death, you won't die. Isn't it good to get 1 point? Now you've completely lost." Yagyu Hirai slammed his fist on the table and cursed, "Damn it. What a stupid thing this guy has done." Chiba Mieko's face was pale. She had just had a hunch that He Lizzie would lose, but she hadn't expected that Qin Haodong would win in this way. She really couldn't imagine how magical this young man was. He had won the competition with just a breath. He Lizzie, who was on the stage, looked pale. At this time he was full of regret. Wasn't it good to get 1 point? Why did he have to be greedy? Now he had lost in a mess. Qin Haodong stepped in front of him and said, "How about it? What else do you have to say now?" Of course he Lizzie didn't want to admit defeat. However, the referee had already given the result. He really couldn't think of a reason to refute it. As a Wuxia person, you have forgotten your ancestors. You have a traitor as your father. Wuxia cultivated you, but now you return the kindness with ingratitude. The more Qin Haodong spoke, the angrier he became. His voice became sharper and sharper. Finally he said coldly, "Since you have lost, hand over your hands. Don't touch Wuxia's traditional painting ever again." Dr. Qin is right. Hand over your hands. You don't deserve to draw Wuxia's traditional painting anymore. You have a traitor as your father. You have forgotten your ancestors. You are a despicable man. You deserve it. The audience below the stage was agitated. They already hated this despicable traitor in front of them. He Lizzie quickly put his hands behind his back and said with a frightened face, "Don't come over. I'm telling you, this is a legal society. I am a neon person now. If you cut off my hands, it will cause international disputes. Don't worry, I won't cut off your hands. It will be too bloody in front of so many people." After that, he patted He Lizzie's shoulder gently with an amiable expression. He Lizzie breathed a sigh of relief. This toy boy's words were fierce, but he was still afraid of his identity. Wuxia people were still afraid of neon people. Chapter 268. He wanted to raise his hand to wipe the cold sweat off his forehead, but he was horrified to find that he couldn't move his hands. He couldn't even lift them. "Bastard, what did you do to me? Why can't my hands move all of a sudden?" He Lizzie screamed with a horrified expression. As a painter, he knew the importance of his hands. Without them, he would be no different from a good-for-nothing. "I don't know. Everyone is watching. I didn't do anything to you, unlike you who had already prepared the knife to chop off your hands." Qin Haodong smiled more brightly and continued, "But I'm a doctor. I can give you a diagnosis now. You were too emotional after losing the game just now, which led to serious muscle weakness in your arms. You can't use your hands anymore." "No, it's impossible. My hands are fine." He Lizzie roared crazily and tried to reach for the brush on the table next to him. But no matter how hard he tried, he could no longer pick up a brush. "God, why are you doing this to me? You can't do this to me. I still need to paint in the future. I still need to paint." Qin Haodong sneered and said, "It's very kind of God not to kill a shameless person like you who takes the enemy as your father and deceives your ancestors." He Lizzie calmed down a little and suddenly realized that all this must have something to do with Qin Haodong. He knelt down on the stage, hugged Qin Haodong's thigh and cried, "I know I was wrong. Please let me go this time. I'm from Wuxia. My name is He Lizzie, not Koyama Lizzie. As long as you can restore my hands, I will immediately give up my neon citizenship and return to Wuxia. I will work for Wuxia and win glory for Wuxia." Qin Haodong sneered and said, "You think too much. What do you think Wuxia is? Is it a place where you can come and go as you please? Wuxia will not accept a shameless person like you. It's fine if you don't want it, but please heal my hands." He Lizzie kowtowed like a chicken eating rice and knelt on the stage, begging bitterly. He knew the importance of his hands. If he really became useless, he would never have a good time in neon. Qin Haodong said, "There's an old saying in Wuxia. I don't know if you still remember it. The evils you bring upon yourself are the hardest to bear. I really can't. I beg you, I'll kowtow to you. I beg you, you must cure my hand." He Lizzie begged on the stage, and the Wuxia audience felt very happy. This shameful traitor finally got what he deserved. Yagyu Hirai's face was livid. He Lizzie was now a neon national. He was crying and kneeling there, which was a disgrace to neon. He said to a neon warrior beside him, "Go and take him down. Don't embarrass yourself here." The neon samurai answered and quickly stepped onto the stage. He grabbed He Lizzie's shoulder and dragged him out of the venue. Looking at the miserable He Lizzie, Qin Haodong shook his head. He had brought this upon himself. People like him, who could even betray their ancestors and people, would not have a good end in neon. Once they lost their value, they would be worse than dogs. At the end of the game, Gompos left the scene, and Qin Haodong also turned and walked down the stage. At this time there was a burst of cheers and everyone was cheering for his performance. After returning to the stage, Tang Qingji was the first to greet Qin Haodong. He bowed deeply to Qin Haodong. "Mr. Tang, what are you doing?" Qin Haodong quickly reached out and helped him up. Tang Qingji said excitedly, "Little brother Qin, you've helped me a lot today and saved the face of Wuxia. You deserve this bow from me." Qin Haodong said, "As a descendant of Wuxia, it's my duty to do something for Wuxia. You don't have to do this, boss Tang." After they sat down again, Tang Qingji asked again, "Little brother Qin, your move just now was really beautiful, but I really don't understand. How did you get the last plum blossom kung fu?" Qin Haodong smiled slightly and said, "It's just a little trick. It's not worth mentioning." Of course he couldn't tell the truth. He had just used green wood genuine qi to change the color of the ink, which was beyond the art of painting. On the neon side, Yagyu Hirai was so angry that his eyes turned red. He whispered, "I must kill this Wuxia man." Now they had lost 3 games in a row. According to the best of 5 rules, they had lost the competition. All of this was caused by Qin Haodong. To be precise, they had carefully prepared for so long, but they had lost to one person. No wonder they were angry. "We should have gotten rid of this man yesterday," Chiba Mieko said, "but it's too late now. With so many people watching, we can't act rashly." Yagyu Hirai knew that she was right. He took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. He turned to a young man next to him and said, "Yagyu Shizukumo, it's your turn in the next game. For the honor of our Neon country and our Yagyu family, you have to win this game. Do you hear me?" "Yes, young master." Yagyu Shizukumo bowed his head and then stepped onto the stage. 2 Neon attendants followed him closely, carrying an antique Wuxia guqin in their hands. After getting on the stage, he said proudly to Qian Duo, "In the 4th game, Neon will challenge Wuxia's guqin." Qian Duo looked at the list in his hand and said, "You said that you would challenge guqin in the 4th game, but it's not easy to determine who will win and who will lose in music. How will you judge the winner?" Since Neon was the challenger this time, Wuxia fully developed its style. All the challenge methods were proposed by Neon, and Wuxia accepted all of them. As for the 4th game, guqin, the program only said that it would be a challenge, but there was no clear explanation of the method. Yagyu Shizukumo said, "That's easy. I just need to play. As long as someone from Wuxia can listen to me, they will win. Otherwise, Neon will win." "What kind of competition is this?" Qian Duo looked puzzled. Not only him, but the audience also did not understand what the Neon people were doing. Would they win by listening to him play a song? Everyone knew how to listen to music. Was there a need to compete? "You don't need to ask too much. Just do as I say." Yagyu Shizukumo found a chair and sat down. He asked someone to place the guqin in front of him. Qian Duo turned to look at Gao Fengwen and Lang Sanyuan and asked, "Neon has proposed this kind of challenge. Can we accept it?" Although they knew that Yagyu Shizukumo's challenge was definitely not that simple, they could not back down now. Moreover, Lang Sanyuan had always been proud. Qin Haodong had just won 3 games in a row. Now it was finally his chance to show off. He said, "No problem. I've already said that no matter what kind of challenge they propose, we will accept it." Gao Fengwen did not know anything about music. Since Lang Sanyuan had agreed, he naturally could not say anything more. Lang Sanyuan said again, "I don't need to deal with this level of players in person. My disciple can do it." He turned to a young man in his 20s and said, "Li Mu, you go." "Yes, teacher." Li Mu stepped onto the stage and sat opposite Yagyu Shizukumo. Yagyu Hirai and Chiba Mieko secretly breathed a sigh of relief when they saw that it was not Qin Haodong. They were now faintly afraid of this young man. They had just lost 3 games in a row to Qin Haodong. They were really afraid that he would go on the stage again this time. On the stage, Yagyu Shizukumo glanced at Li Mu and said, "Wuxia man, are you ready?" Li Mu said, "We can start at any time." At this time he was extremely confused. He had been learning the guqin from Lang Sanyuan since he was 5 years old. Now he could be regarded as a small success. He did not understand why the Neon would ask him to listen to music. Yagyu Shizukumo sneered. His slender fingers gently plucked the guqin. The clear sound of the guqin immediately rang out. The sound seemed to come from the depths of ancient times, piercing people's hearts. An expert could tell whether he was good or not. Although everyone did not like the Neon people, they had to admit that Yagyu Shizukumo played the guqin really well. He was playing the famous Wuxia song High Mountain and Running Water. As his fingers moved, the clear sound flowed out, making everyone present feel as if they were in the middle of mountains and rivers. Some people even closed their eyes and were fascinated. This Neon man had a deep attainment. Lang Sanyuan was a master of the guqin, so he immediately heard that Yagyu Shizukumo's level was not lower than his. Fortunately, this guy did not propose to compete with him. Otherwise he would not be sure of winning. In contrast, listening to music was much easier. This kind of song could be listened to for 3 days and 3 nights without any problem. While he was secretly rejoicing on this side, Li Mu knew his own suffering. This song of high mountains and flowing water was no different to other people's ears. It brought a kind of extremely comfortable enjoyment, but to his ears, it was a kind of torture. Since the music sounded, Li Mu felt that his blood was boiling and rushing to his head. What's going on? He had never encountered such a situation after playing music for so long. He suddenly panicked and tried to control his body, but he could not. A lot of blood rushed to his head, making his face redder and redder. He felt that his head was going to explode. Ah! In just a dozen seconds, Li Mu let out a scream, fell on the stage and fainted. What's going on? Lang Sanyuan was enjoying the high mountain and running water with his eyes squinted. Suddenly he saw his disciple fall down. He was shocked. Qin Haodong's pupils suddenly shrank. He had already understood what Yagyu Shizukumo was playing. This neon man actually knew the killing skill of sound. The so-called killing skill of sound was to change the human body's function through music, and it could even kill people invisibly. Fortunately, the neon man's attainment was not too high. Otherwise, Li Mu would have been dead. At this time, the medical staff immediately rushed to the stage and carried Li Mu down. Gao Fengwen was also somewhat confused. Li Mu looked healthy. Why did he suddenly fall down? He said to Qin Haodong, "Dr. Qin, what's going on?" Yagyu Shizukumo, who was on the stage, showed a trace of pride and said to the audience, "You Wuxia people are really sick men of East Asia. You're too weak to even listen to a song. There are 2 more chances. Who's next?" The audience suddenly boiled up. Wuxia people hated the words sick men of East Asia the most. Modern Wuxia was no longer the weak country it used to be. They could no longer bear the humiliation brought by these words. "Neon man, you're shameless. Have you forgotten that you've lost 3 games in a row? Don't be complacent, Neon Man. You're bound to lose this game. President Lang, teach this Neon Man a lesson. Let him see who is the sick man of East Asia." Lang Sanyuan was not a warrior, nor did he know the killing skill of sound. At this time he did not understand what Yagyu Shizukumo was playing. However, when he saw many people shouting his name, he could only bite the bullet and go on the stage. Chapter 269. Although Lang Sanyuan was arrogant, he did have great attainments in music. He had been elected as the president of the Jiangnan Music Society by virtue of his ability. However, this did not help him in his current predicament. The killing skill of sound used by Yagyu Shizukumo had nothing to do with whether the opponent understood music or not, unless the opponent also knew the killing skill of sound. This was completely out of the scope of music. That was to say, it was not an exchange between Chinese zither, but a Japanese warrior attacking ordinary people. This move was extremely sinister. This was the backup tactic that Yagyu Hirai had come up with. He had originally thought that the first 3 games would be enough to defeat Wuxia, and the killing skill of sound would not be used at all. He had not expected that Qin Haodong would appear out of nowhere and completely destroy their plan. He had no choice but to send Yagyu Shizukumo, hoping that the killing skill of sound could help Neon save some face. Qin Haodong felt Li Mu's pulse. The injury was not too serious, but the killing skill of sound had disturbed his blood. He injected greenwood genuine qi into Li Mu's body and combed him from head to toe. After his blood returned to normal, Li Mu quickly opened his eyes and stood up from the ground. He quickly said, "There is something wrong with the Japanese zither. I feel like my head is going to explode after listening to it." As soon as he finished speaking, he heard another thud on the stage. Lang Sanyuan also fell to the ground. As a teacher, he only lasted a few seconds longer than Li Mu. Immediately, another medical staff carried Lang Sanyuan off the stage. This time, Gao Fengwen did not speak. Qin Haodong reached out and patted him on the chest a few times, using greenwood genuine qi to wake him up. After getting up from the ground, Lang Sanyuan's face was red. He looked at Qin Haodong and said awkwardly, "I'm sorry. I've lost face for Wuxia." Qin Haodong did not care about his previous rudeness and said, "It has nothing to do with you. This is not a fair game at all." Gao Fengwen asked, "Dr. Qin, what's going on? Why did you faint after listening to an ancient song? And we have no problem?" The killing skill of sound was really difficult to explain. Qin Haodong said, "It's very complicated. I'll go up and kill the Japanese." After winning 2 games in a row, Yagyu Shizukumo said proudly, "You are really the sick man of East Asia. You have one last chance. Who dares to come up?" "Allow me." Then he picked up the teacup on the table, walked slowly to the stage and sat opposite Yagyu Shizukumo. That damn bastard, why is he here again? Yagyu Hirai gritted his teeth when he saw Qin Haodong. Chiba Mieko said, "Don't worry. The killing skill of sound is a secret skill that has been lost for many years in Wuxia. Yagyu Shizukumo learned it by chance. It's probably useless even if he comes up." Yagyu Shizukumo looked at Qin Haodong and sneered, "Boy, do you want to try my 7-string guqin?" Qin Haodong picked up the teacup and took a sip leisurely. Then he said, "It's wonderful to listen to music and drink tea. Let's get started." Yagyu Shizukumo's expression changed and he said with a ferocious expression, "Boy, I'll kill you today." After that, his 10 fingers danced wildly on the 7-string zither, and the tune changed from the gentle high mountain flowing water to the murderous ambush from 10 sides. The sound of the zither came out in a hurry, like thousands of soldiers and horses. The cold killing intent swept toward Qin Haodong. Yagyu Hirai looked at everything on the stage with a gloomy expression, hoping that Qin Haodong would die under Yagyu Shizukumo's 7-string zither on the spot. Qin Haodong seemed to be unaware of all this. He sat in the chair, leisurely crossed his legs, picked up the teacup in his hand and took a sip. The sound of his tea was not loud, but it was like a sharp sword piercing through the sweeping music. The monstrous killing intent suddenly disappeared. Yagyu Shizukumo raised his eyebrows. He had not expected that Qin Haodong would break the killing skill of sound. However, in his opinion, it should be an unintentional move. Then, his index fingers danced again, and another wave of killing intent condensed. Qin Haodong put the teacup on the table in front of him, kicked his legs and whistled leisurely. All the people under the stage looked at Qin Haodong nervously, for fear that he would faint on the ground like Lang Sanyuan and his disciple. Unexpectedly, he was not only intact, but he also whistled leisurely. The key was that the tune was so beautiful. It was the second senior brother carrying his wife, which was familiar to everyone in Wuxia. Suddenly there was a burst of laughter. Qin Haodong's whistle did not seem to be loud, but each tone could accurately penetrate the gap of the 7-string zither, making his breath chaotic and uncomfortable. If the killing skill of sound was compared to the ripples in the water, each scale of Qin Haodong's whistle happened to appear at the bottom of the ripples. Not only did he suppress the other's scale, but even Yagyu Shizukumo's heart slowly beat according to his rhythm. "Oh no, I met a master." At this time, Yagyu Shizukumo would not think that it was just a coincidence. It was obvious that Qin Haodong was also proficient in the killing skill of sound, and his level was far above his. If he met such a master in another place, he would immediately pick up the 7-string zither and run away. But now he was competing in the arena. If he lost this game, Neon would lose 4 games in a row. He was afraid that he would not be able to escape the punishment of the Yagyu family when he went back. Moreover, he had just used a killing move and Qin Haodong obviously did not hold back. The notes of the two sides were intertwined as if they were competing with genuine qi. It was impossible for one side to stop. Once he stopped now, the other side's killing skill of sound would immediately be like a flood and fierce beast. He could not stop it at all. If he was lucky he would be injured, and if he was lucky he would die. It was very likely that his heart would jump out of his mouth. "I didn't know that you could bear it." A sneer appeared at the corner of Qin Haodong's mouth, and the whistle suddenly became louder. The scales were like sharp swords, piercing toward Yagyu Shizukumo. Yagyu Shizukumo was already an arrow at the end of its flight. At this time, how could he resist it? He spat out a mouthful of blood on the 7-string zither in front of him, fell to the ground and became unconscious. The audience could not understand what had happened. At first, 2 people had fainted while listening to the music. Now, even Yagyu Shizukumo, who was playing the 7-string zither, had spat out blood. What was going on? However, it was no longer important. They knew that Qin Haodong had won this game again. Everyone was not stingy with their applause and cheers for the young man who kept bringing them surprises. "Good job, Dr. Qin. Dr. Qin is amazing. Long live Dr. Qin. Dr. Qin, you are my idol. You are the Ultraman of Wuxia. Japanese, you are the sick man of East Asia. Get out of Wuxia." In the overwhelming shouting, Chiba Mieko's face was pale. She looked at Qin Haodong on the stage and could not say a word for a long time. Yagyu Hirai waved his hand, and immediately 2 neon warriors came to the stage and took Yagyu Shizukumo off the stage. He turned to Chiba Mieko and said, "Miss Mieko, the last game is a traditional Chinese medicine competition. It will be your turn soon." Chiba Mieko sighed heavily and said, "Mr. Yagyu, I think we'd better give up. We have lost 4 out of 5 games and we will definitely lose the last one. I can't compare with Qin Haodong in terms of medical skills. No, this is not in line with the spirit of our warrior. Yagyu Hirai's eyes were blood red as he shouted crazily, in any case, we have to win at least one game on this trip to Wuxia. Otherwise how can we go back? He was the young master of the Yagyu family and the leader of this trip to Wuxia. If Wuxia really won 5 o'clock, his name would be nailed to the pillar of shame of Neon. Maybe he would lose his position as the young master. Chiba Mieko cried, but we tried last night. In terms of traditional Chinese medicine, I can't compare with Qin Haodong at all. Miss Mieko, you can do this. Yagyu Hirai whispered a few words in Chiba Mieko's ear. Mr. Yagyu, how can you do this? Chiba Mieko had a shocked expression on her face. Why not? We have to win at least one game. Besides, this Qin guy will definitely be a big problem for our country in the future. Shameless Neon, why don't you go to the nursing home to challenge the martial arts of Wuxia? You'll have a better chance of winning. You're too shameless. If you can't win, just admit defeat and get out of Wuxia. Chapter 270. Chiba Mieko blushed in the face of the public criticism. However, she quickly regained her composure for the sake of Neon. She glanced around and said, Mr. Gao, please answer a question for me. Go ahead. Let's see what reason you have. Gao Fengwen said angrily, Chinese medicine has a long history. In ancient Chinese medicine, there is a saying that medicine, martial arts, and metaphysics are inseparable. As a Chinese medicine practitioner, he must practice martial arts. Am I right? As soon as Chiba Mieko finished speaking, the venue immediately quieted down. Everyone's eyes were focused on Gao Fengwen's face. It was the first time they had heard that a Chinese medicine practitioner had to practice martial arts. This, Gao Fengwen, who had been filled with righteous indignation, was now speechless. Chiba Mieko was right. In traditional Chinese medicine, doctors of traditional Chinese medicine had to take a break from martial arts. At least, they had to have some internal qi cultivation. They didn't want to compete with others, but to save people with profound medical skills. The Yellow Emperor and the Plain Maiden were the originators of traditional Chinese medicine. Everyone knew that the two of them were great masters who rarely appeared in the world. However, Wuxia was not what it used to be. After thousands of years, even martial arts had declined. There were fewer and fewer warriors, let alone the martial arts cultivation of Chinese medicine practitioners. In Wuxia there were very few Chinese medicine practitioners who still practiced martial arts. They could be counted on one hand. In any case, Chiba Mieko's question was right. Gao Fengwen could only nod and say, Miss Chiba is right. There is such a saying. Chiba Mieko sneered and said lightly, in this case, we are now at the Wuxia Ancient Culture Exchange. Is there any problem with me challenging the martial arts of Chinese medicine? Gao Fengwen was speechless for a while. Although Chiba Mieko was obviously twisting words and forcing logic, he could not refute her for a while. Since you don't object, it means you agree. Now Wuxia has two choices. Either send someone to fight or admit defeat on the spot. Also, I've said that the martial arts challenge of Chinese medicine practitioners must be a Chinese medicine practitioner. Chiba Mieko turned to look at Qin Haodong. Am I right, medical sage? Her last sentence blocked the path of martial artists from China. In other words, even if you were well-versed in martial arts, you couldn't go on stage if you weren't a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. The reason why he said so was that he was afraid of another warrior like Qi Weiner. After all, Wuxia was so big, who knew which one was a hidden master? Gao Fengwen was completely dumbfounded. He had wanted to compete with the Neon people with his medical skills and win glory for Wuxia traditional Chinese medicine. However, Chiba Mieko had taken an unconventional approach and made him unable to start. Under such circumstances, he could only turn his head to look at Qin Haodong. The young man who had been creating miracles was also a warrior, but he did not know if he was a match for Chiba Mieko. Qin Haodong sighed secretly. It seemed that he couldn't keep a low profile even if he wanted to. The Japanese woman was obviously targeting him. He took 2 steps forward and said calmly, since Miss Chiba insists on challenging martial arts, I'll play with you. However, the sword has no eyes, so don't cry when you get hurt. Chiba Mieko slowly raised the neon sword in her hand and made a starting gesture of the Neon One-Sword School. She said seriously, this sword is called the Thousand Blade. Please advise me, Mr. Qin. Qin Haodong smiled and said, I'm afraid it's not that simple. Is it because I'm so powerful that you're jealous of me and want to take the opportunity to kill me? Chiba Mieko's expression froze. Qin Haodong's words were exactly what she was thinking. For the long-term development of Neon, she had to get rid of the young man in front of her. Mr. Qin, this is just a cultural exchange challenge. Please make your move. The audience was excited. They had only wanted to watch a cultural exchange competition, but they hadn't expected the content to be so rich. In the end, there was even a martial arts competition, which made them very happy. Dr. Qin, beat this woman hard. Dr. Qin, show the Neon martial arts in Wuxia. The medical sage is invincible. Long live the medical sage. Although the audience were ordinary people, in their opinion, Wuxia martial arts had always been invincible. Naturally, they would not be afraid of a little Neon woman. Qin Haodong stood on the stage with his hands behind his back and said, "You're a guest. I'll let you make 3 moves first." The Neon woman's cultivation had reached the 3rd level of the covert power. Although she had been trying to hide it, Qin Haodong could still see through her with his powerful spirit. Chiba Mieko stared at Qin Haodong with burning eyes, but she couldn't see through his cultivation at all. Qin Haodong practiced cultivation methods, so he looked no different from ordinary people. Suddenly, the 1000 blade in her hand flashed and turned into a stream of light, chopping toward Qin Haodong's head. The strike was fast and fierce, full of killing intent. There was no intention of a competition at all. She simply wanted to cut off Qin Haodong's head. A cold light flashed in Qin Haodong's eyes. He tilted his body slightly, and the 1000 blade cut from one side of his face. Chiba Mieko turned her wrist, and the 1000 blade swept across his waist. Qin Haodong's expression changed, and he turned into a shadow behind her. Kill? Chiba Mieko suddenly pulled back her knife and performed a magnificent spinning chop. She was using a knife technique which was fast, accurate, fierce, and domineering. At this time, she didn't look like a weak Neon woman at all. She was a goddess of slaughter. Qin Haodong's figure disappeared again. When he reappeared, he was already on the left side of Chiba Mieko. After 3 moves, he punched Chiba Mieko's shoulder. His cultivation had reached the 5th level of the covert power. Coupled with his rich combat experience from his previous life and the exquisite martial arts moves of the cultivation world, he could kill this Neon woman in seconds. However, he had never liked to completely expose his trump card, so he had suppressed his cultivation to the 3rd level of the covert power. Even so, Chiba Mieko and Yagyu Hirai, who were watching the battle from below the stage, were surprised. Originally, they had thought that Qin Haodong's cultivation was at most at the 6th or 7th level of the overt power. They hadn't expected him to be similar to Chiba Mieko's. The two of them fought back and forth on the stage. Because Qin Haodong didn't want to show off too much, the fight lasted for more than 100 moves. Chiba Mieko was a little anxious. This was the last battle of Neon. If she lost, there would be no chance to save face. She held the knife with both hands and cried, "Qin-kun, although you are very good, it's not a disgrace to die under the 1000 blades. I told you not to cry when you get hurt." Qin Haodong smiled slightly. He knew that the woman was going to use a killing move, but it was not a challenge for him. 1000 blades. There was a flash of sharpness in Chiba Mieko's eyes. The 1000 blades in her hand instantly turned into thousands of knife lights and stabbed at Qin Haodong. At this time, it seemed that she was holding thousands of swords in her hand. The whole thing surrounded Qin Haodong, making it impossible to tell which knife light was the real 1000 blades. Yagyu Hirai stood up suddenly, his eyes full of excitement. Miss Chiba had actually mastered the 1000 blades. She was indeed a genius of Neon. On the Wuxia side, all the audience stood up and looked nervously at the stage. Under the knife lights all over the sky, they couldn't imagine how the young man could dodge. The knife lights flashed like lightning. Soon, the sky full of knife lights had disappeared. When everyone saw the scene on the stage again, the 1000 blades had been inserted under Qin Haodong's ribs. Just when people exclaimed and thought that Qin Haodong had met with misfortune, they saw him smile and raise his hand to slap Chiba Mieko's lower abdomen. That's impossible. Chiba Mieko's face was full of horror. She couldn't figure out how Qin Haodong had found the 1000 blades in the sky full of knife lights and put it under his ribs. But the truth was the truth. At this time, her 1000 blades was tightly clamped and could not move at all. Just when she was hesitating whether she should abandon the knife, Qin Haodong's palm had already hit her lower abdomen. Her whole body flew backward in the air and fell to the ground with a plop. Chiba Mieko struggled to sit up from the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. In the end, she was defeated. What kind of monster was this man in front of her? He had single-handedly thwarted the perfect plan of the entire Neon country. Suddenly, she looked crazy and shouted at Qin Haodong, "What did you do to me? Where's my genuine chi? Where's my cultivation? As a warrior at the third level of the covert power, her elixir field was as still as an ordinary person's. There was no sign of genuine chi activity. No matter how hard she tried, there was still no reaction. My cultivation has been destroyed. This thought suddenly appeared in her mind. Chiba Mieko could no longer control her emotions and burst into tears. As a genius of the generation in neon, she had been accustomed to the admiration and worship of others. She couldn't accept the fact that she had become an ordinary person. I told you not to cry when you're hurt. Why didn't you listen? Qin Haodong said jokingly, in fact it's not a bad thing to lose your cultivation. You can be a good doctor in the future and find a good family to marry. Women are women. Why are they always fighting and killing? He was not a kind man. Naturally he would not be polite to those who wanted to kill him. It was very kind of him to destroy Chiba Mieko's cultivation. If it had not been for the fact that they were in public, he would have killed the neon woman with his palm. This knife is good. You won't need it in the future. Consider it my trophy. Qin Haodong stepped forward, took the scabbard from Chiba Mieko's waist, and put away the 1,000 blades. Then he said with a smile, how about it? Do you want to continue? I'll kill you. Chiba Mieko shouted and rushed toward Qin Haodong. Although she was full of hatred, she had become an ordinary person from a warrior at the third level of covert power. Without the support of genuine chi, she did not have the amazing speed she had before. In addition, she was seriously injured. After taking a few steps, she fell to the ground. This time she felt sad again. She sat on the ground and cried. She looked like an ordinary girl who had been wronged. She had lost her previous arrogance. Qin Haodong looked at the pitiful Chiba Mieko and smiled coldly. There was no pity in his heart. If he had been the one who had been defeated, he would have been a dead body by now. He turned his head to look at the neon team and shouted, how about it? Are there any more doctors on your side who want a challenge? There were many warriors in neon, but Chiba Mieko was the only doctor who was proficient in martial arts. Yagyu Hirai's face was ashen. He waved his hand and asked someone to bring Chiba Mieko down. Although he was extremely unwilling, he had to face reality. He could only choose to cry out painfully, we admit defeat. Qian Duo held the microphone and announced, in this cultural exchange meeting, the Wuxia delegation won all 5 battles and won the competition. Hooray! There was a jubilation at the scene. Everyone from Wuxia vented their inner joy. Yagyu Hirai glared at Qin Haodong viciously and left the venue with his people. Chapter 271. The cultural exchange between Wuxia and Neon, which caused a sensation in the south of the Yangtze River, ended with the overall victory of Wuxia. That night, several departments that participated in the cultural exchange held a grand celebration ceremony in dreamy Jiangnan. The protagonist of the victory party was naturally Qin Haodong, who had suppressed the Neon Nation with his own strength. After the celebration began, Guofeng, Gao Fengwen, and others frequently toasted him. Guofeng said, Brother Qin, fortunately I invited you today. Otherwise it would be really troublesome. I didn't expect the Neon to be so despicable. They can come up with all kinds of sinister ways. Gao Fengwen said with deep emotion, it seems that this trip to Wuxia has been planned for a long time. The purpose is to make Wuxia lose face. Fortunately, we have the medical sage. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Everyone present nodded. The Neon people used the ancient culture of Wuxia to challenge Wuxia. It was obvious that they wanted to humiliate Wuxia. If they lost to the Neon people in terms of their traditional culture, they would not even be able to get the bronze head of the 12 zodiac animals back. I'm afraid that they would never have the face to go out again. Fortunately, there was Qin Haodong on the Wuxia side. Not only did he win every challenge, but he also won very beautifully and happily. Gao Fengwen raised his glass and said, let's have a toast to celebrate our victory today. We should celebrate that our ancient culture has a successor. We should celebrate that Wuxia has the medical sage. After he finished speaking, everyone raised their glasses together and drank up the wine in one gulp. The celebration continued. Hua Mingrui, the tea fairy, came to Qin Haodong's side in a black cheongsam. This woman's figure and temperament were simply tailor-made for the cheongsam. She had a unique beauty when she wore it. Dr. Qin, let me toast you. Hua Mingrui raised the goblet in her hand and gently touched Qin Haodong's. Then she took an elegant sip. She put down the glass and said, Dr. Qin, I was born in a tea ceremony family. My grandparents were tea ceremony masters. Under their influence, I began to learn tea ceremony at the age of 5. I made some achievements at the age of 10 and won the title of tea fairy at the age of 20. All these years, I have never admired anyone in tea ceremony until I met you today. Regardless of whether it is my grandparents or I, no matter how hard we try, we are unable to step into the realm of pervading fragrance. I would like to become your disciple and learn the art of tea. Is that possible? After that, she looked at Qin Haodong with a pair of big watery eyes. This request surprised Qin Haodong a little. He said, Miss Hua's talent in the tea ceremony is far beyond that of ordinary people. As long as you continue to work hard, you will definitely succeed in the future. It's only a matter of time before you enter the pervading fragrance field. Mr. Qin, you haven't said whether you're willing to accept me as your disciple or not. Could it be that my aptitude is so dull that I can't enter your eyes? That's not what I mean. Qin Haodong said awkwardly, actually, I don't know anything about the tea ceremony. All I know is how to make tea. Hua Mingrue's face turned cold and she said, Dr. Qin, you can refuse me but you can't lie to me. How can someone who can make the pervading fragrance not know the tea ceremony? Qin Haodong scratched his head and said, well, would you believe me if I told you that I was born with it? He really didn't know the tea ceremony. The reason why he could make the pervading fragrance field was that he used Emperor Greenwood's ability to control the characteristics of plants to stimulate all the fragrance of the tea leaves. But if he was asked to make the pervading fragrance field with the tea ceremony of ordinary people, he really couldn't do it. However, Emperor Greenwood's ability to control plants was innate, so he really couldn't teach Hua Mingrue. Born with it? Is there such a talent? Hua Mingrue was surprised at first, and then she thought of Qin Haodong's clumsy performance when making tea. He really didn't look like a tea ceremony master, and there was no need for him to lie to her. Thinking of this, she believed him a little. But what kind of person was he? He could actually make the pervading fragrance field with his instinct. How could they, who had worked hard to practice the tea ceremony, accept this? Miss Hua, if there's nothing else, I'll leave now. Not only did Qin Haodong say goodbye to Hua Mingrue, but he also left the celebration party. Now that he had an upper-level spirit stone in the storage ring, he was eager to go back and improve his cultivation. He hurried home. As soon as he arrived at the living room, the lights in the living room were turned on before he could turn on the lights. Under the light, Yagyu Ai, who was wearing a loose kimono, stood there. Why are you here? Qin Haodong asked in surprise. I'm sorry to disturb you, Mr. Qin. Please forgive my sudden visit. Yagyu Ai trotted to Qin Haodong in her wooden clogs. She bowed first and then said respectfully, Mr. Qin, your performance today is really amazing. Whether it's the tea ceremony, painting, or music, you have reached the peak. Even Miss Chiba Mieko is no match for you. You are so powerful and admirable. Qin Haodong had 500 years of experience. Of course, he was not a little boy who would get complacent after hearing a few good words. He said lightly, what do you want? Just say it. Mr. Qin, you know that we Neon people worship the strong most, so I want to stay with you. Suddenly, she turned back and opened her sexy little mouth, shooting a black light directly at Qin Haodong's face. Little devil, you've shown your tail so soon. Neither of them seemed surprised by Yagyu Ai's assassination. Qin Haodong turned his head and the black light hit the wall behind him. It was a black silver needle which had penetrated more than half of the wall. Could be seen how powerful it was. At the same time, Hu Shaoxian had reached out and grabbed Yagyu Ai's neck. She would not show mercy to someone who wanted to assassinate Qin Haodong. With a slight force, Yagyu Ai's neck was broken and she fell to the ground with a thud. Yagyu Ai had just died, and Qin Haodong had not yet stabilized his footing. Suddenly, a black sword stretched out from the darkness and suddenly turned toward Qin Haodong's back. At this time, Qin Haodong had lost his center of gravity, so it was impossible to dodge. He stretched out his right hand, and Chiba Mieko's 1,000 blades appeared in his palm. Then, his left foot touched the ground as an axis, and his body spun violently, using a roundhouse chop. The 1,000 blades collided with the sword behind him with a clang. The sword bounced more than a foot high and disappeared into the darkness in an instant. Ninjutsu? It's a neon ninja. After Hu Shaoxian shouted, she was on full alert. Qin Haodong did not stop. The 1,000 blades in his hand once again turned into a silver rainbow and fiercely pierced the void on the left. With another clang, a neon ninja dressed in black appeared. It was Yagyu Hirai, whom he had just met in the afternoon. He took a few steps back, looked at Qin Haodong with a look of horror, and asked, You broke my ninjutsu. How did you find me? It's just a little ninjutsu. Don't make it sound so awesome. Qin Haodong did not care at all. With his powerful spirit, even the most brilliant ninjutsu could not hide. While speaking, the 1,000 blades in his hand chopped toward Yagyu Hirai's head. The attack was fast and fierce, like a lightning strike from the sky. It was too late for Yagyu Hirai to dodge. He could only wave the sword in his hand to block it. With a clang, the sword and the 1,000 blades collided again. This time Qin Haodong used all his strength. Yagyu Hirai was cut 6 or 7 meters away with the sword. He slammed into the wall behind him and then spat out a large mouthful of blood. Yagyu Hirai did not even have time to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. He cried in horror, "You aren't you at the 3rd level of the covert power? How can you be so powerful?" Tonight's assassination was planned by him. First, he had asked Yagyu AI to seduce Qin Haodong. It would be best if he could kill Qin Haodong in bed. If not, he would assassinate him at the end. Qin Haodong had shown that his cultivation was at the 3rd level of the covert power. He was also at the 3rd level of the covert power. With the same cultivation and his hidden skills, he was confident that he could kill Qin Haodong. Chapter 272. However, he didn't expect that all of this was fake. Qin Haodong's genuine qi was so powerful that it directly injured his internal organs. Qin Haodong's cultivation was at least level 5 of covert power. Qin Haodong made a beautiful knife flower in his hand and said jokingly, "Can't I hide my cultivation? Bite me if you can't. Cunning Wuxia man, I'll kill you." Yagyu Hirai roared, waved the knife in his hand and rushed to Qin Haodong again. He was also a favored son of heaven in Neon. He was the heir of the Yagyu family and could be ranked in the top 10 of the younger generation. Originally, he wanted to stabilize his position as the heir by planning this trip to Wuxia. Unexpectedly, he met Qin Haodong in Wuxia and was played by him. He had lost 5 games at the cultural exchange meeting. He had lost all his face and wanted to regain his face through this assassination. He didn't expect that Qin Haodong would not only break his ninjutsu, but also have a higher cultivation than him. Under the repeated blows, Yagyu Hirai, who was proud and arrogant, was in a crazy state. He wanted to die with Qin Haodong. However, dying with Qin Haodong required not only courage but also ability. It was impossible for him to die with Qin Haodong. Yagyu Hirai's knife did not hit Qin Haodong with all his strength. On the contrary, Qin Haodong's 1,000 blades cut off his arm. His arm fell to the ground with a clang and blood gushed from the broken arm. The severe pain made Yagyu Hirai withdraw from his violent state. His anger turned into fear. He looked at the 1,000 blades dripping with blood in Qin Haodong's hand and shouted, "You destroyed Chiba Mieko's cultivation and cut off my arm. The Yagyu family will never let you go. You're about to die but you're still talking big. Show me what you can do. I'll take it but you won't be able to see it. Go report to the king of hell." Qin Haodong was about to kill Yagyu Hirai. Hu Shaoxian stopped him and said, "Wait a minute, this guy is still useful to us. What's the use of such a waste?" Qin Haodong said, "No matter what, he is the young master of the Yagyu family. He still has something in his mouth. I'll take him back to play for a few days. I'll send him back to you after I've used him." Qin Haodong put away the 1,000 blades and said, "As you wish. Thank you for giving me face." Hu Shaoxian leaned over and kissed Qin Haodong's face with her plump body. Then she said in a low voice, "Did killing the neon woman ruin your plan? Don't be sad. I'll compensate you after I'm done with my work." "Ah, forget it, you don't have to pay." From the moment Yagyu AI appeared, Qin Haodong had felt her killing intent, so he had been on guard all the time. How could he have a relationship beyond friendship with her? "No, we still have to pay," Hu Shaoxian said, "but now I have to trouble you to stop this guy's bleeding, or it will be dry before we arrive." "Where are you taking him? Back to the capital?" As Qin Haodong spoke, he reached out and hit several acupoints on Yagyu Hirai. First, he sealed his cultivation and then he helped stop the bleeding on his shoulder. "No need. If he was the master of the Yagyu family, I would take him back to the capital. He is just a nobody, so I can deal with him in the Jiangnan branch." Hu Shaoxian grabbed Hirai's other arm and walked straight out of the door. Yagyu Hirai, who weighed more than 50 kilograms, was like a light chicken in her hand as if he weighed nothing. After she left, Qin Haodong dragged Hirai's arm and Yagyu AI's body into the bathroom. He turned them into a mass of black ash with the body melting powder and flushed them into the sewer. At Jiangnan Airport, a private charter plane was parked on the runway. The relevant facilities and staff of the airport were ready for takeoff. The pale-faced Chiba Mieko and Yagyu Shizukumo were sitting in front of the cabin. They were in the same boat. Both of their cultivations had been destroyed by Qin Haodong. A neon person who looked like a secretary ran to Chiba Mieko and said, "Miss Chiba, the airport has given us the last notice. If we don't take off in 10 minutes, we will miss today's departure time. We can only go back to Neon tomorrow." Although they were using a private charter plane from Neon, they had to follow the arrangements of the airport to use the Wuxia airport and the scheduled route. Chiba Mieko sighed and said, "Inform the airport that we will take off in 5 minutes." The secretary agreed and went to contact the airport. Yagyu Shizukumo said, "Miss Mieko, the young master hasn't come back yet. Is it appropriate for us to go back now?" Chiba Mieko said, "Yagyu-kun made the final arrangements before the assassination. If they don't come back at the scheduled time, he asked us to fly directly back to Neon and ask the master for help. It's an hour later than the scheduled time. It seems that the assassination did not go well. Yagyu-kun must have encountered trouble." Yagyu Shizukumo said with hatred, "That hateful Wuxia man. Can't the young master kill him with his cultivation?" Chiba Mieko did not speak. She was not optimistic about the assassination. The strength that Qin Haodong had shown was so amazing that people could not see his bottom line. The entire Yagyu family's trip to Wuxia had been ruined by such a person. However, after her cultivation had been destroyed, she was full of hatred for Qin Haodong, so she did not stop Yagyu Hirai. It seemed that the assassination plan had failed. 5 minutes later, their plane took off and went straight in the direction of Neon. At the headquarters of the Yagyu family in Neon, Chiba Mieko was kneeling on the ground. In front of her was a neon man in a kimono. Although he did not look tall, he had a superior aura. He was Yagyu Shinji, the master of the Yagyu family. "Mieko, where is Yagyu Hirai? Why don't I see him? Is it because of this failure that he has no face to come to see me?" Nowadays, communication was extremely advanced. Yagyu Shinji had already received the report of the failure of the challenge against Wuxia. He had even watched the whole video of the game. Chiba Mieko told him how Yagyu Hirai had planned to assassinate Qin Haodong. Finally she said, "Master, Yagyu-kun has not come back. Maybe he is dead. It's all my fault. Qin Haodong destroyed my cultivation. Otherwise I would have probably succeeded by fighting side by side with him. Bastard, the Wuxia people have gone too far." Yagyu Shinji smashed the tea table in front of him. Yagyu Hirai was his favorite son. Otherwise he would not have made him the heir of the family. Now that his life was uncertain, how could he not be angry? However, he was the master of the family after all. He quickly calmed down and said, "Mieko, you can't blame this on yourself. Blame Qin Haodong." Chiba Mieko said, "Master, you must find a way to get rid of this person. If he grows up, he will definitely be a big problem for our Neon country. Go back to your teacher and rest in peace." Yagyu Shinji said with a ferocious expression, "This Wuxia man must die. No one can live well after provoking our Yagyu family. Patriarch, I'm counting on you." Chiba Mieko stood up, bowed to Yagyu Shinji and then left the room. Yagyu Shinji thought for a moment and said to the attendant at the door, "Go and get Yagyu Waka for me." The attendant answered and left. Soon, a neon warrior in his 30s appeared in front of Yagyu Shinji. He was Yagyu Waka, one of the top 10 ninjas of the Yagyu family. The ninjas of Neon were also divided into levels. Each ninja had a cherry blossom mark on his collar. One cherry blossom was equivalent to a warrior between the first and third level of the covert power in Wuxia. 2 cherry blossoms were equivalent to a warrior between the 4th and 6th level, and 3 cherry blossoms were equivalent to a warrior between the 7th and 9th level. Yagyu Waka had 3 cherry blossoms on his collar. His cultivation had reached the 7th level of the covert power. Yagyu Waka bowed and asked, "Master, what can I do for you?" Yagyu Shinji briefly introduced the situation in Wuxia and said, "Take some people to Wuxia immediately. You must find a way to save Yagyu Hirai and cut that Wuxia man into pieces." "Yes, I promise to complete the task." An hour later, hundreds of ninjas of the Yagyu family were on a plane to Wuxia. The lineup for this trip to Wuxia was extremely large. There was a Sanhua ninja, 2 Sanhua ninjas, 2 Sanhua ninjas, 40 middle-level ninjas and 50 low-level ninjas. This was almost half of the strength of the Yagyu family. It could be seen that Yagyu Shinji was extremely angry. Qin Haodong knew nothing about all this. After dealing with AI Yagyu's body, he excitedly took out the upper-level spirit stone he had taken from the bronze head of the 12 zodiac animals. The room was immediately filled with abundant spiritual qi. Currently, the middle-level spirit stone had little effect on his cultivation. If he wanted to break through quickly, he could only rely on the upper-level spirit stone. He held the spirit stone in the palm of his hand and began to practice. With the successful operation of the Aoki Hall, the spiritual qi in the room rushed to his body like rivers flowing into the sea, turning into a trace of genuine qi and converging into his dantian. Time passed little by little. He didn't wake up from his cultivation until the sky turned white and the golden rooster crowed. Looking at the upper-level spirit stone that had become powder in his hand, he couldn't help but shake his head. The higher his cultivation, the greater his need for spiritual qi. The last upper-level spirit stone had been used by him, the little fellow, and Hu Shaoxian, and they had directly promoted their cultivation from the 9th level of the overt power to the 5th level of the covert power. This upper-level spirit stone was used by him alone, but he had only been promoted from the 5th level of the covert power to the 9th level of the covert power. He hadn't touched the threshold of the supreme power realm. It seemed that if he wanted to form the gold elixir and restore his cultivation to the supreme power realm, he would at least need to find another upper-level spirit stone. When they arrived at the Lin's villa, the little fellow had just gotten up. The father and daughter were intimate for a while. Lin Momo said, "You left the factory building to me. Where did you go yesterday?" Qin Haodong said with a smile, "With a capable wife like you, I don't need to do anything. Besides, I can't help you with this kind of thing." "Bah! How can you be so unreasonable when you don't have to do anything?" Lin Momo spat, but she was very happy with his words. She said with a happy face, "I have good news for you. There is progress in building the factory." "So fast. Have you chosen the location?" "Not only has the location been chosen, but we even have a factory." Lin Momo said excitedly, "There is a traditional Chinese medicine factory for sale. We didn't get involved in the pharmaceutical industry before, so we didn't know much about it. The factory has been sold for 2 years and no one has taken it over. In fact, the factory is very new, and the production line is not backward. It just went bankrupt because of improper management. As long as we get this company, the blood revival oral liquid can be put into production immediately." Qin Haodong said excitedly, "Really? That's great. What we need most now is time." After thinking about it, he asked, "How much money do we need to get this pharmaceutical factory?" "Please go back today." After that, he waved his hand. Saber and the others immediately came over and escorted Lin Momo into the building of the group. The reporters knew about the press conference tomorrow, so they no longer pestered her and went back to prepare. Wang Rubing was in a good mood these days. Li Donghai didn't bother her again after being driven away by Qin Haodong. But when she was about to get off work, her phone rang. It was Li Donghai. She felt a headache when she saw the 3 words on the phone screen. She was sick of Li Donghai, but no matter what, he was still her cousin. She could not block him completely. In desperation, she pressed the answer button and said in a cold voice, "What's the matter?" Li Donghai's helpless voice came from the other side of the phone. "Rubing, what's the matter? Are you not happy to answer my call?" Wang Rubing didn't want to say a word to such a person. She said coldly, "If you have something to say, say it. If not, I'm hanging up." "If you have something to say, don't hang up." Li Donghai said, "I was wrong a few days ago. I want to invite you to dinner tonight and apologize to you in person." "You want to invite me to dinner? Do you want to borrow money from me again?" "I'm telling you, you've borrowed all the money, and I haven't received this month's salary yet." Li Donghai said, "You're right. I'm rich now. If you need money, just tell me. 30 or 20,000 yuan is not a problem at all. Just take it." Wang Rubing was confused. She didn't know whether what the rogue said was true or not, but it didn't matter to her. She said, "It's better if you don't need money. You don't have to invite me to dinner or apologize to me. Just don't harass me in the future." Seeing that Wang Rubing refused, Li Donghai quickly said, "Don't, Rubing. I sincerely apologize to you this time. You have to accept it or I'll wait for you downstairs." Wang Rubing had no choice but to say, "Well, where are we going to eat?" "Room 302 of Milan Restaurant. I've booked a room. I'll be there soon." Li Donghai hung up the phone excitedly. Wang Rubing put away her phone. She was a little confused by Li Donghai. She couldn't understand why he suddenly seemed to be a different person. Did he really change? She wanted to call Qin Haodong, but she put her phone away after taking it out. Recently, Qin Haodong had been troubled by too many things. Moreover, it was not a big deal for Li Donghai to call her. At most, he would ask for a meal. At worst, he would borrow some money from her. Thinking of this, she drove straight to Milan restaurant. When she arrived at room 302, she didn't see Li Donghai. She took out her phone and was about to call Li Donghai. Suddenly, she felt someone covering her mouth from behind. Then, everything went black and she lost consciousness. Qin Haodong had been working all day. When he was about to go to find Lin Momo, the phone in his pocket rang. He took out the phone and glanced at it. It was Chi Weiner. He pressed the answer button and heard her say weakly, "Haodong, come and have a look. I'm sick. I feel terrible." "You're sick? How is that possible?" Qin Haodong was a little surprised. He knew very well how strong Chi Weiner's body was. She had taken so many elixirs from him. Her cultivation had reached the 3rd level of covert power. She shouldn't get sick easily. On the other side of the phone, Chi Weiner said discontentedly, "What's wrong? I'm also a human. Why can't I get sick? Come and see me." "Well, don't worry. I'll be there now." Qin Haodong hung up the phone. He said goodbye to Lin Momo and drove directly to Daddy's security company. Since Chi Weiner had been living here, Nailin Wushuang specially arranged a suite with 2 bedrooms and 1 living room for her. There was a living room, a bedroom, and a kitchen. It was no different from an ordinary home. When Qin Haodong entered the door, Chi Weiner was wearing a floral home dress and an apron around her neck. She was carrying dishes from the kitchen to the table. Seeing her lively appearance, Qin Haodong said with annoyance, "Didn't you say you were sick?" "Yes, I'm really sick. Feel my pulse if you don't believe me." Chi Weiner pulled Qin Haodong to sit down on a chair and then put her white hand in front of him. Qin Haodong reached out his right hand to feel her pulse. He quickly let go and said, "You're sick. Even a cow is not as strong as you. Don't make such a joke again. That's so vulgar. I'm a beauty. How can you compare me to a cow?" Chi Weiner said and suddenly sat on Qin Haodong's lap. Then she reached out and put her arms around his neck. She blushed and said, "In fact, I'm really sick, but it's lovesickness. I suddenly recovered from the moment you came in." Qin Haodong now deeply understood the meaning of this sentence. In the face of the affectionate Chi Weiner, his heart was instantly melted. Chi Weiner gently kissed him on the cheek and then jumped down from his lap. She pointed to the dishes on the table and said, "Haodong, these are all dishes made by me. Try them and see if they are delicious." Qin Haodong glanced at the dishes on the table, and his face instantly darkened. He had to say that Weiner's cooking skills were really amazing. The green vegetables were fried black and it was obvious that they were burnt. But why was the thing that looked like a chicken wing green as if it had been poisoned? "Haodong, try them. I've been busy all afternoon," Chi Weiner said eagerly. Although Qin Haodong was immune to poison, he was really afraid of being killed by this thing. How could he refuse without hurting Chi Weiner's heart? "I'm not too hungry. I'm not in a hurry to eat." He suddenly saw the computer on the table and said, "Why don't you forget to take the computer with you when you eat?" As a top hacker, Chi Weiner couldn't leave the computer at all times. After hearing Qin Haodong's words, she immediately shifted her attention. She said, "Because I want to see you all the time." "See me?" Qin Haodong asked in surprise, "Can you see me with this thing?" Chi Weiner said, "Of course. Now the entire Jiangnan City surveillance system is under my control. I can adjust whichever camera I want. It's easy to see you." Then she pulled the laptop in front of Qin Haodong, pointed to the screen and said, "Look, I've been watching you coming to me. This is the exit of Lin's group. This is the car. This is our company." Chi Weiner skillfully operated the computer and showed the surveillance pictures to Qin Haodong. Facing such an infatuated girl, Qin Haodong was moved, but he felt helpless. If this went on, what privacy would he have in the future? Chi Weiner didn't know what he was thinking. She still operated the computer and looked at Qin Haodong affectionately on the screen. "Wait a minute." Qin Haodong's expression suddenly changed. He said to Chi Weiner, "Hurry up and switch to the previous picture." "What's wrong?" Although Chi Weiner was puzzled, she immediately returned the computer to the previous interface. This was the picture of Qin Haodong's car passing the intersection of the Milan Western restaurant. Just when he was waiting for the signal light, the surveillance could just shine on a corner of the parking lot. At this time, 2 young men carried a girl into a black car. The girl was Wang Rubing, and Qin Haodong saw at a glance that she was in a coma. Qin Haodong suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. He quickly took out his mobile phone and dialed Wang Rubing's number. Soon he heard the reminder that the phone was turned off. At this time he was 100% sure that Wang Rubing had been kidnapped. But she was just a girl who had just started working. Why did they kidnap her? Did it have something to do with him? He forced himself to calm down and turned his eyes back to the surveillance picture. The two men were wearing sunglasses and caps, so he couldn't see their faces at all. The time shown in the upper right corner of the screen was an hour ago, which meant that a whole hour had passed since Wang Rubing was kidnapped. "What's wrong, Haodong? What happened?" Qi Weiner asked. "My sister was kidnapped." While speaking, Qin Haodong's body was filled with cold killing intent. Whoever dared to kidnap Wang Rubing must pay the price. Just then his mobile phone on the table rang, showing a strange number. Chapter 274. When Wang Rubing regained consciousness, she found herself in a small valley. Opposite her, a neon man in a samurai suit and holding a neon sword was looking at her. She wanted to speak, but found that her mouth was taped and her body was tightly tied up. Seeing that Wang Rubing had woken up, Yaguwaka waved his hand. Immediately, a neon warrior came over and tore off the tape on her mouth. Wang Rubing gasped and asked, "Who are you? Why did you bring me here?" After experiencing so many things with Qin Haodong, her psychological quality had been greatly improved. Although she was a little panicked, she was still rational. She did not struggle irrationally. She knew that it would not only be useless, but would also bring more harm to herself. Since these neon people had tried their best to bring her here, they knew that they would not let her go easily. However, she did not understand why these people had taken her. "Miss Wang Rubing, you're very beautiful," Yaguwaka said in stiff Wuxia language. Wang Rubing did not speak. She just looked at Yaguwaka quietly. She knew that this neon man had brought her here not to praise her. Yaguwaka said lightly, "Miss Wang Rubing, I heard that you have a brother named Qin Haodong." Hearing this, Wang Rubing immediately understood why she had been kidnapped. It turned out that these neon people had come for Qin Haodong. However, she was not willing to be a hostage like this. She would rather be hurt than be used by the neon people to threaten Qin Haodong. She said, "I don't have such a brother. I don't even have a friend with the surname Qin. I think you're mistaken." "Miss Wang Rubing, it's no use quibbling now." "I'm not quibbling. I really don't know Qin Haodong." "Miss Wang Rubing, don't worry. We won't do any harm to you. Qin Haodong has taken the young master of our Yagyu family. I just want to exchange him for you. Of course you have to cooperate with us. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that my men won't be impulsive when they see a beauty like you." Wang Rubing said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know Qin Haodong either. Let me go. We came all the way from Neon to Huaxia. We can't be wrong." Yaguwaka smiled. "Since Miss Wang doesn't want to admit it, I'll let you meet someone. You'll soon know that it's useless to deny it." As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his hand, and a person appeared from behind the tree. It was Li Donghai. "Mr. Yagyu, what can I do for you?" Li Donghai bowed and asked in a flattering manner. "Miss Wang said she doesn't know Qin Haodong. Please correct her statement." "Don't worry, Mr. Yagyu. The three of us grew up together. There's no mistake." Li Donghai walked up to Wang Rubing and said, "Rubing, just admit it. You can't hide it." Wang Rubing finally understood what was going on. It turned out that Li Donghai had been working for the neon people. No wonder he suddenly changed. Wang Rubing knew that this neon person was going to use her to threaten Qin Haodong. She wanted to go forward and grab the phone, but she was tightly tied up and couldn't move at all. Qin Haodong glanced at the phone on the table and instinctively felt that it had something to do with Wang Rubing. He took a deep breath and answered the phone. At the same time, Qi Weiner took the laptop in her hand and her fingers moved quickly. She wanted to locate the location of the person in the shortest time possible. "Are you Qin Haodong?" Yaguwaka said in a stiff tone. "Who are you? Did you kidnap my sister?" "You're really smart. Since you've guessed it, let's make a deal. You bring back the young master of the Yagyu family, and I'll give Miss Wang back to you. What do you think?" Qin Haodong said, "Do I have a choice? But you have to prove that my sister is really in your hands first." Yaguwaka handed the phone to Wang Rubing and said, "Miss Wang, don't you want to talk to your brother?" Wang Rubing cried into the phone, "Haodong, don't worry about me. They dare not do anything to me." Yaguwaka took the phone back. He was very satisfied with Wang Rubing's performance. The more she behaved like this, the more likely Qin Haodong would come to save her. He said to the phone, "What do you think? Do you believe me now? If you dare to touch a hair on my sister's head, I promise you'll live a life worse than death." Qin Haodong's voice was piercingly cold. What he hated most was using his family to threaten him. These neon people had touched his bottom line. Yaguwaka didn't care at all. He said with a sinister smile, Your sister is really beautiful. You know that I brought the strongest men in Neon, so I can only guarantee that Miss Wang will be safe for an hour. After an hour it's hard to say. So you have to bring the young master to me safely within an hour, or you'll have to bear the consequences. Qin Haodong said, tell me your address and I'll send Yagyu Hirai there right away. He had already sentenced the Neon people to death in his heart. They dared to touch his family and he would definitely make them pay the price. In an hour, 20 kilometers outside the western suburbs of Jiangnan, Yagyu Waka hung up the phone and sat cross-legged in front of Wang Rubing. He held the handle of the katana tightly in his hand. As a superior ninja, he had to adjust his state to the best before every battle. After hanging up the phone, Qin Haodong asked Qi Wan, have you confirmed their location? Is it true or not? I've already located it. The location of the call is the same as the location of Rubing's phone number. It should be there. Can you find out how many people are coming from Neon this time? How strong are they? Although he was extremely angry, Qin Haodong was still very rational. He had to know both himself and the enemy. Otherwise, not only could he not save Wang Rubing, but he might also suffer a great loss. Qi Wan quickly searched again, and the result came out after 2 minutes. In addition to the normal flights, there was a private plane from Neon to Wuxia this morning. The Neon people who kidnapped Rubing should have taken this plane. How many people? How strong are they? Qin Haodong had already admired Qi Wan-er's hacking skills. Having such a person as a helper saved a lot of trouble. There are 96 people on the plane, but I don't know their specific cultivation or strength. Since the Neon people came prepared, they must have bad intentions. We have to deal with them carefully. 100 people. They really put in a lot of money. Qin Haodong sneered. Since the Neon people dared to provoke him in Wuxia, he would make them pay the price. Immediately inform all the staff of our company to enter the first level of combat readiness, and send someone to replace the Divine Knife mercenaries with Momo to participate in this battle. Since he did not know the strength of the other side, he had to show his strongest strength. After Qi Wan left, Qin Haodong quickly called Hu Shaoxian. Since the other side asked to exchange hostages, he had to get Yagyu Hirai back. The phone was quickly connected. Hu Shaoxian said with a smile, little man, you miss me so soon? Qin Haodong said as fast as he could, the Neon people kidnapped my sister. Send Yagyu Hirai to Daddy Security Company in 10 minutes. I want to exchange hostages. Hu Shaoxian immediately became serious and said, don't worry, he will be here in 10 minutes. Qin Haodong hung up the phone. At this time, a harsh alarm sounded in the yard of Daddy Security Company. It was the first time that it had been used since the establishment of the company. The members of Daddy Security Company were basically battle-hardened special forces. After hearing the alarm, they immediately gathered at the training ground. In less than half a minute, a combat team of 100 people was assembled. Nalan Wushuang rushed to the training ground and saw Qin Haodong looking serious. She asked, what happened? Chapter 275. Qin Haodong said, the Yaguis of Neon sent nearly 100 people to Wuxia and kidnapped my sister. Today we're going to have a good fight with them. Nalan Wushuang was stunned at first and then said, should I inform Wuxia and ask her to send some special forces? No, we're enough. Qin Haodong was confident in the strength of his men. Besides, if the special forces really came, they wouldn't listen to his command. It would be bad if they hurt Wang Rubing. Nalan Wushuang didn't say anything more. She also knew how strong the current Daddy Security Company was. There were more than a dozen masters of covert power, and the lowest cultivation had reached the 7th level of overt power. Except that they were not equipped with guns, their strength was definitely far beyond the strongest special forces in Wuxia. At this time, Zhang Tinyu quickly ran in front of Qin Haodong and shouted, Boss, 100 members of Daddy Security Company have gathered. Please assign tasks. Qin Haodong took 2 steps forward and said loudly, today's task is different from the past. In an hour we will fight with a Neon warrior who invaded Wuxia. This is not a defense task, nor is it a performance but a real battle of life and death. You can choose freely. I welcome those who want to participate, and those who don't can quit immediately. Don't feel burdened and you will still be a member of our company in the future. Now make a voluntary choice. Those who want to participate tonight, stand on my right side, and those who don't, stand on my left side. These people were all veterans who had experienced hundreds of battles. When they heard that they would fight with Neon, there was no fear in their eyes. On the contrary, they were filled with a long-lost excitement. In just 10 seconds the whole team moved to Qin Haodong's right side and no one quit. Well done, Qin Haodong, thank you. Since all the members were willing to participate in the battle, Qin Haodong immediately asked Nalan Wushuang and Qi Wan to equip these people, and then called Zhang Tiniu and Qin Fugue to discuss the battle plan. Both of them had served as senior commanders, and they were much better at commanding than Qin Haodong. 5 minutes later, all the members of Daddy Security Company were divided into 2 combat teams. Nalan Wushuang and Zhang Tiniu led one team to outflank the Neon people from the east, and Qi Wan and Qin Fugue led the other team to outflank the Neon people from the west. After Qin Haodong rescued the hostages, they would immediately attack. The overall goal was not to let any Neon people escape. Soon, everyone set off, leaving only a few team members and Qin Haodong in the company. At this time 2 cars drove in quickly. The one in front was the 6 members of the Divine Mercenaries, and the one behind was Hu Shaoxian, who was carrying Yagyu Hirai, who had lost his human form. Boss, we're here. Saber came to Qin Haodong with 6 people. Knowing that there would be a tough battle tonight, his eyes were full of excitement. Qin Haodong waved his hand and asked the 6 of them to stand aside. Then he pointed to Yagyu Hirai and said to Hu Shaoxian, "How can I exchange hostages when he's like this?" If the Neon people saw Yagyu Hirai's miserable appearance at this time, they would immediately go berserk and kill Wang Rubing to vent their anger. There's no other way. This guy is very stubborn. It's inevitable to use some means. Hu Shaoxian said awkwardly, "Aren't you a doctor? Can't you just treat him?" At this point there was no other way. Qin Haodong glanced at the 6 people of the Divine Mercenaries and said to Sword, "You take this guy and follow me." After that he took the lead and walked into the medical room next to him. Sword followed him with Yagyu Hirai. In the small valley, a Neon warrior came to Yagyu Waka's side. 2 cherry blossoms were embroidered on his collar. It was Yagyu Yoshida. "Sir, the time you said is coming. I don't know if that guy from Wuxia dares to come." Yagyu Waka held his saber and said, "He will. According to the information we have in the past, that guy is very arrogant. He will definitely come to save people." Yagyu Yoshida glanced at Wang Rubing, who was next to him, with a touch of lust in his eyes. He said with a dirty look, "Sir, this Wuxia woman is really beautiful. Do you really want to give her back to the Wuxia people?" "Yoshida, don't forget our task. Before we exchange the young master, no one should have any ideas about her." Then a playful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "But after the hostage exchange, it's up to you. We brought so many people with us. We can't let that guy from Wuxia run back. He must die, and this woman will be rewarded to our most valiant warrior." It was no wonder that Yagyu Waka was so confident. On this trip to Wuxia, they had brought a total of 1 Sanhua ninja, 2 Sanhua ninjas, 2 Sanhua ninjas, 40 intermediate ninjas and 50 low-level ninjas. This lineup was beyond imagination. There was no reason for them to fail. "I understand, sir. In the words of the Wuxia people, as long as they come, they will be in our pocket." After Yagyu Yoshida said that, the 2 of them laughed arrogantly together. Wang Rubing looked at them with anger in her eyes. Unfortunately she was tied up like a dumpling. She could do nothing but keep cursing the ancestors of the 2 Neon people in her heart. After laughing, Yagyu Waka said, "It's almost time. Have you arranged everyone?" Yagyu Yoshida said, "Yes, we have. We have 50 low-level ninjas on the periphery, 40 middle-level ninjas in the middle, and 6 top-level ninjas in the core. In front of such a powerful force, that guy from Wuxia can never escape unless he is an immortal." Hearing the conversation between the 2 people, Wang Rubing's eyes flashed with despair. Although she knew that her brother had some skills, there were nearly 100 Neon people in front of them. No matter how powerful Qin Haodong was, he could not fight against 100 Neon people alone. Yagyu Waka glanced at Wang Rubing and said proudly, "It won't be long before you see how our Neon warriors cut your brother in half with a knife." They were proud and disappointed at the same time, but they all forgot that no one had said that Qin Haodong was fighting alone. At this time, Qin Fugue and Zhang Tiniu had surrounded the small valley with their people. Every member of the Daddy Security Mercenary Group used to be excellent soldiers, and later they were promoted to warriors. The lowest cultivation had reached the 7th level of the overt power. Such a team showed their super strength. Their movements were extremely fast and silent. Moreover, as the best mercenary group in Jiangnan City, Nalan Wushuang bought the world's top equipment for everyone. Not only was the equipment good for attack, but it also had night vision equipment and wireless communication equipment. When Yagyu Yoshida made the arrangement, he put the focus of all the neon warriors in the center of the small valley. As soon as Qin Haodong returned Yagyu Hirai, they would immediately attack and kill him. It was a completely strategic offensive formation. This arrangement made it convenient for Zhang Tiniu and Qin Fugue, and they surrounded them from outside. After everything was arranged, Zhang Tiniu, Qin Fugue, Nalan Wushuang and Qi Wan had a meeting in a small cave. Zhang Tiniu said, "I just scanned the valley with an infrared scanner. There are 98 people in the valley. One of them is Miss Wang Rubing, and the other 97 should be neon warriors." Qi Wan said, "I just went in and checked. Their encirclement is set up according to the form of heavy inside and light outside. The outermost warriors have the lowest cultivation. All of them are below the 6th level of the overt power, about half of the total number. Further inside, their cultivation is a little higher, about between the 6th level of the overt power and the 9th level of the overt power. Several neon warriors in the core should have reached the level of the covert power. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, I dare not get too close." Nalan Wushuang said, "Overall, their comprehensive strength is not as good as ours. It's not a problem to kill all these little neon warriors. The most important thing now is how to ensure the safety of Rubing." Qin Fugue said, "We can only do the preparation work now. Don't act rashly. When we see the boss rescue Miss Rubing, we will immediately launch a thunderous attack and wipe out these little devils in one fell swoop." Zhang Tiniu said, "In order to maximize the efficiency of the attack and minimize the casualties, we can distribute the personnel. The number of people on both sides is about the same. Later we will assign the tasks according to the method of Tianji's horse race. There are about 50 people on our side who have reached the 7th level of the overt power and the 8th level of the overt power. Let each of them choose a low-level neon warrior as the target to attack. We will lead the warriors whose cultivation is above the 9th level of the overt power to choose a middle-level neon warrior as the target. The advantage of this is that everyone has a specific target, and they will maintain an absolute advantage in cultivation. Once they take action, they can kill the other party in seconds. When the periphery is cleared, there are only a few neon warriors at the level of the covert power in the core. They can't make any trouble." Nalan Wushuang nodded and said, "That's a good idea. Let's go back and prepare immediately. But we must pay attention to concealment. We must not alert the enemy." After the discussion, they immediately went back to take people to do the preparation work. They were waiting for Qin Haodong to come and launch a thunderous attack. Time passed. When it was the appointed time, there was a roar of motor vehicles outside the valley. Soon 2 SUVs stopped at the entrance of the valley. Qin Haodong and Hu Shaoxian walked into the valley side by side. Behind them, the divine mercenaries were suppressing Yagyu Hirai. After seeing Qin Haodong, Wang Rubing immediately shouted, "Haodong, run! There are so many of them. This is a trap. You can't save me at all." Li Donghai hurriedly shouted, "Don't shout. What are you shouting for? If Qin Haodong really runs away, we will all be finished." As he said that, he reached out to cover Wang Rubing's mouth. Wang Rubing opened her mouth in a hurry and fiercely bit him. She suddenly tore a piece of flesh from his hand, and the bite was bloody. Li Donghai screamed and slapped Wang Rubing in the face. "You bitch, how dare you bite me? Do you want to die?" Seeing him, Qin Haodong immediately understood what had happened. He must have betrayed Wang Rubing and let the neon people use her as a hostage. At this time, seeing him hit Wang Rubing again, Qin Haodong's anger had reached its peak. "Li Donghai, you are worse than pigs and dogs. You must die." Li Donghai shouted arrogantly while covering the wound on his hand. "Qin Haodong, you are about to die. You will not have a good end if you offend Mr. Yagyu. Let's see what you can do to me in the future." He had just heard the conversation between Yagyu Waka and Yagyu Yoshida. In his eyes, Qin Haodong was already a dead man, so his expression was extremely arrogant. "Then let's see who will have a good end," Qin Haodong said and turned to look at the neon people in front of him. "Who is the boss? Stand up." Yagyu Waka stepped forward and said, "Huaxia man, you are very brave. I am Yagyu Waka, the superior ninja of Neon, the leader of this trip to Huaxia." Qin Haodong sneered, "Yagyu Waka, right? I want him dead. Can you?" As he said that, he raised his hand and pointed at Li Donghai. "You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.